Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna continue the story What If Naruto and Fem Kurama Were a Criminal Duo, Part 11. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Sitting on the floor of his living room, Naruto was staring at a water balloon with great concentration when Kyuubi asked, "Naru-kun, what in the world are you doing with that balloon? If you throw that at me, I'm going to be upset." Maintaining his focus on the water balloon, Naruto responded, "It's not meant for you, Q-chan. Ero Sennin gave me this as a part of my training for a new jutsu. I'm supposed to pop it by rotating the water in it with my chakra." "So you're going to pop your balloon on the bare floor of your brand new apartment?" Kyuubi asked, smirking as she placed her hands on her hips and gestured to the elevator where Naruto's clones were entering with furniture. "Where do you want all of this stuff?" Kyuubi asked, gesturing to the elevator. Naruto growled as he returned his attention to the balloon, saying, "I've got to pop this goddamn water balloon so I can do the next step of whatever this is. Just anywhere inside where it's supposed to be for right now," he said. "I'll figure out where to put all of it once it all gets here." The clones arranged the new couches around Naruto as though he were the focal point of the living room. Two of them even got up and settled him on one of the couches, leaving him by himself with a pat on his head while he went about his business. After making fun of Naruto and his clones, Kyuubi questioned him, saying, "So what are you learning? I thought you were trying to learn that wind jutsu of yours." "Fuuden. Kei's Kongu no Jutsu, wind release. Wind bolt jutsu," he asked before breaking into laughter. "I can do that. After I learned how to split a leaf with my chakra, it was easy for me to feel exactly where the point was for me to hold the jutsu in my hand. This is training for the Rasengan, spiraling sphere." Kyuubi said, "I can stay tonight, right?" as she sat down next to him on the couch he was using. "Sounds fun. Your dad still doesn't know where I live yet, does he?" Kyuubi asked, shaking her head. This caused Naruto to sigh with relief. "Good. Yeah, of course you can stay. And just so that he doesn't kill me the next time we train together, you might want to tell him where my new place is now. It's not like he can even get all the way up here in the first place." He finished with a smile and received a kiss on his cheek as Kyuubi leapt up and ran off to call. Naruto dropped his balloon onto his floor as a result of this action. Naruto watched in horror as the balloon rolled back and forth, water sloshing violently inside its thin membrane. He hardly moved. Surprising that it hadn't burst, Naruto became bored of simply sitting there and concentrating on spinning his chakra. He began to roll the balloon back and forth with his feet, recalling something Jiraiya had said to him during their training session that day. Retrospection. Earlier that day in training, Jiraiya and Tsunade were watching as Naruto steadily attempted to pop the water balloon with his right hand by spinning his chakra. Tsunade watched the younger blonde stumble over the first step of his new training, a warm smile on her face. To get Naruto's attention, Jiraiya said, "Now I'm not teaching you this jutsu just to throw you a bone, Gaki." He had an expectant expression on his face, though, and added, "You're going to be working harder and harder operations for me once I think you're ready to advance. You're officially my apprentice now, you've got talent. I want to see how far you can push yourself." As he continued to work, Naruto replied, "Whatever you say, Ero Sennin, I'll handle whatever you give me, I guarantee it." That was what he wanted in any case. Harder missions translated into more money, and more money translated into a greater distance from the streets from which he had made every effort to keep his distance. He liked Jiraiya's statement, "Just got to pop this goddamn balloon first," more than anything else. He didn't see Tsunade wincing over the idea of him having to take on riskier tasks, but she didn't object outright either, at least not while he was there. Finalize flashback. Pop as the water balloon at his feet burst, spraying water all over his floor. Naruto thought to himself, "God damn it. At least I can wipe it up on hardwood." He got up and went to find something to mop up the water. Kyuubi asked him from the roof balcony she had strolled out onto to breathe in the night air, "What happened, Naru-kun?" He returned from the connected kitchen with a mess of paper towels in his living room and said, "I got water on the floor when I was messing with the balloon." His eyes grew wide as he bent down and started to let the wet mess soak into the paper towels. "Go fill up another balloon like the one I just had, please," he asked abruptly as Kyuubi came back downstairs to see what he had done. He had just thrust a bag of balloons in her face. Even though Kyuubi raised an eyebrow at his strange actions, he still followed Naruto's instructions and went to the kitchen sink. "What did you find out about this?" he asked her as he followed her to the sink to get the water balloon right away, ignoring the fact that he should have been cleaning up his mess. He said, getting ready to implement his idea. I've got to spin the water in more than one direction, like in as many directions as I can at once. With curiosity, Kyubi placed her hands on her hips and asked, "Do you have the control for that?" as she observed the balloon. Despite her best efforts to teach him illusions for months, his control was infamously inadequate. This was the reason they had stopped teaching him his demonic techniques. He never attempted to go any farther because he didn't want to cheat in advance without mastering the illusions. Kyubi rolled her eyes at the jab at one of her favorite moves, Kitsune no Manto, Foxcloak, saying, "I'm just spinning my chakra around." Naruto snorted angrily, "Relax, it's not like I'm trying to make myself invisible here." Pop. And there we go. Naruto grinned and shook out his now wet hands. He laughed at Kyubi, who had just jumped back from the balloon's unexpected pop. "You were saying that I couldn't?" Kyubi asked. "I never said you couldn't. I asked if you had the control to get it on the first try. So what's the next step?" Kyubi asked curiously as she shook her head and embraced him from behind. Naruto gestured with his arm. "I've got to burst a rubber ball with my chakra now, and I'm not doing that until tomorrow morning after you go home. I need a rest. I've been doing this since 10 straight hours." "Oi boss. We put the bed up and put the stuff on it so you can stop training now." A clone of Naruto's materialized from the back hallway at that precise moment. Naruto triumphantly threw his hands in the air, eliciting a chuckle from his clone before it vanished. "Come on, Naru-kun. Let's get you all rested up. It wouldn't do if someone came here trying to assassinate you again and all you could do to fight them off would be to yawn at them," Kyubi said, dragging him toward the main bedroom by his waist from behind. With a smug smile, Naruto allowed Kyubi to drag him. "Yeah right, as if we're really going to be sleeping," she said. "You and I both know that we're lucky we have this whole floor to ourselves because you're going to be screaming my." Finish that sentence and there won't be any screaming going on in this place for a while. At least not of the good kind. Kyubi interrupted him with a charming, deceptive smile. Naruto dragged himself the rest of the way into his room and uttered, "I'll be good." XXX. The following day. One of the most crucial aspects of managing the time allotted for summer vacation is battling summer boredom. Naruto used his reliable cell phone and contact list to gather information because, over the past 6 months, his abject loathing of cable TV had not abated in the slightest. He had initially called Ino to instruct her to send his clones to set up his location, and later on, he had called Shikamaru to ask him to find a means of obtaining a large rubber band for an unidentified purpose. As a result of a series of events, Shino, who was Naruto's landlord, was forced to show up at his place once their plans got underway. Naruto effectively made Shino stay and take part in the celebrations. After receiving a call from Hinata asking how he was doing, she and her younger sister Hanabi arrived to check out Naruto's new home in less than 30 minutes. On his roof balcony, Naruto had a sophisticated-looking slingshot set up between 2 poles fastened to the edge of the roof. He was standing and aiming with a water balloon, saying expectantly, "Come on Shino. Give me some direction here. Be a better spotter." He then muttered, "If Tenten was here, she'd have me shooting crows out of the fucking sky." With his eyes searching the streets and sidewalks for Naruto, Shikamaru, dressed in olive shorts and a green t-shirt covered in black thorns, leaned over the nearby railing and said, "Why are we doing this? This seems troublesome." Shino repositioned his sunglasses on his face and tried to figure out how he got himself into this situation. A man Naruto had actually managed to nail with a balloon had discovered him in his first-floor office and had gone upstairs to tell Naruto to stop. He added, almost in passing, "Why are we doing this, you ask? It is simple. Naruto-san is obviously very bored. And adjust your aim to 1 o'clock, 65 degrees. Their conversation had never progressed that far before he had been persuaded to actually aid the blonde mercenary in his revelry. Naruto laughed and said, "Got it." He then launched another balloon, waiting a short while for a splash and a blaring horn to indicate he had found his target. "Should I pee in one and then shoot it?" he inquired. No, Shino and Shikamaru both agreed, threatening to use force to stop him from doing so. "Take some shots. Don't fire until a hit is assured. Ask Shino or Shikamaru to help line you up," Hanabi, wearing a purple sundress, said as she made her way to the roof, taking back the slingshot in Naruto's place. "You guys are no fun," he said absent-mindedly before turning to yell downstairs into his house. "Tsukime-chan, come here for a minute." After blinking in shock when a balloon was inserted into her slingshot, Hanabi grinned cheekily and took aim. "Can I get something to stand on, Naruto Onichan?" she inquired before realizing she was standing on a patio table. "Wow. Oni-chan is fast." she muttered before turning back to terrorizing the Konoha residents who were unlucky enough to come into her field of vision. May God have mercy on their poor souls. XXX. When Naruto descended the open stairs to his living room, he saw Hinata sitting on one of his couches and Sakura in another, both of them watching as his clones were dispersed throughout the house, tidying it up the way Ino thought it should be with what he had. Naruto spread his legs wide before making a huge leap forward and landing directly next to Hinata on the couch. This startled her so much that she screamed, "Don't do that, Naruto-kun." He slapped her arm and laughed angrily at her outburst. Hinata, who was mortified that she was almost scared enough to hit her friend with a Juken strike, huffed, "I almost hit you for real." She was wearing white shorts and a loose white long-sleeved shirt that exposed her midriff. He apologized to Sakura and said, "I'm sorry, princess. I didn't know what I was going to do today besides train, and with what I need to do I can work on it when you guys leave." He also turned half of his attention towards Sakura. Sakura just gave him a small smile from her chair. "It's not a big deal, Naruto. Ino was bored. I was bored. I think everyone was bored today anyway," she said, toting a light blue ribbon in her hair and a light blue plaid skirt and white button-up shirt. The three that had remained in the room at that point hurriedly descended the stairs while carrying a bucket of water balloons and Naruto's disassembled slingshot. With a hint of perspiration on his brow, Shikamaru asked Naruto, "Where would you hide something like this?" "Why?" inquired Naruto, observing that Shino appeared uneasy while Hanabi and Shikamaru appeared anxious. As she nervously laughed, Hanabi gave Naruto a sheepish smile and said, "Why would we need to hide your slingshot?" "Because Hyuga-san was a little overzealous in her firing and hit a police officer a half a mile away." Shino pointed at Hanabi. "Wow," Naruto stated emphatically before gesturing down the hallway. "Put the stuff in the closet in my room, and watch out for Ino and my clones. Don't get in her way or you might lose your head." Shikamaru and Shino followed his instructions, leaving Hanabi standing there looking hesitant. "And little Tsukime-chan." "Good shot," he said, trying to cheer her up. "From half a mile all the way up here there's no way he saw you, so I'm not mad. Next time just make sure you recognize your target before you take a shot. I don't like going to jail." Now that she knew Naruto wasn't upset with her, Hanabi proceeded to lie down on the couch, more precisely, in a position that allowed her to rest her head on his lap. This made Hinata giggle, and Sakura laughed too. "Naruto, what did you do to get that little girl to like you so much?" Sakura inquired, referring to the 8-year-old's apparent intense affection for him. Running a hand through Hanabi's hair, Naruto joked, "Well, saving her from being kidnapped kind of helped." He continued, "I don't know. Kids just like me for some reason. There's this kid named Konohamaru. Him and his friends like me too." Hearing Hanabi growl at the mention of Konohamaru, he decided to playfully tease her, saying, "I'm sorry Tsukime-chan, I won't bring up your future boyfriend anymore." Hanabi argued, "That idiot isn't going to be my anything Naruto Onichan. I hate that jerk." She closed her eyes, thinking that nothing the other people in the room were watching was particularly interesting. Knowing that Hanabi was on the verge of passing out, Hinata stroked her back and said, "That's right, Hanabi-chan would much rather you be her boyfriend, Naruto-kun." Hanabi pretended to be asleep and didn't react to Hinata's attempt to make fun of her, but her cheeks flushed a little. Naruto laughed and said, "No way, she'd be sick of me in about a week." "I'd bet." He then continued, but his cell phone rang. "Oi deputy, what's up? Itachi done kicking your ass yet?" He heard muffled griping before speaking again. "Yeah, whatever. All bark no bite. Are you downstairs?" There was another silence. "All right. I'll be there in a minute or two." Naruto then carefully removed Hanabi from him and made her rest her head on the couch before heading to his apartment and pressing the button. "What's the matter, Naruto?" Sakura asked, perplexed by what had just happened, something that would have made Naruto get up and head straight downstairs. As the elevator door opened, Naruto answered, "Nothing," adding, "I just have to go downstairs really quick to get someone." Pressing the ground floor button, Naruto left the room full of perplexed women watching as Ino pushed both Shikamaru and Shino back down the hall away from the back rooms. She yelled at the two bewildered teenage boys, "Both of you get out, I'm working," as she flipped her ponytail back and made her way back towards Naruto's back rooms. Ino, dressed in a purple sleeveless turtleneck shirt and jean skirt, complained, "Naruto was the one that trusted me to help him get his place in order and I've been doing a damn fine job without all of the distractions." Sakura sighed and sat at a stool by the kitchen counter in Naruto's massive bedroom, giving Shikamaru a questioning look. "I don't understand just what happened. We were just putting the slingshot in the closet in Naruto's massive bedroom and Ino ran in with a pack of Naruto's clones carrying all kinds of crap. Then she kicked us out, Sakura said. Everyone turned to watch as the elevator door opened and dinged. Naruto and a disheveled-looking Sasuke emerged through the doors. Sakura, ecstatic to see her crush so unexpectedly, exclaimed, "Sasuke-kun, what are you doing here?" With a raised eyebrow, Sasuke gestured to the rear room. "I kind of pay him so that I can stay here when I want to. Speaking of which," he concluded, teasing Naruto with his remarks. Naruto sighed and said, "Go on." He picked his room and marked it carefully, being careful not to make a mistake, but also, "Oh, forget it, you're not stupid, you get it." He spoke without realizing that he had to turn around and look back at Sakura, who had a deer in the headlights expression on her face. "What? I didn't have the time to make him or Q-chan a key to the elevator and the stairs yet. I had to go get him," Sakura said, looking away. Sakura said, sounding as though she was trying to clarify, "So, Sasuke-kun will probably be here a lot, right?" Nodded. "Yeah, probably. The only reason we didn't have a setup like this at my old place is because I didn't have the space for it. Now I do. Why are you asking?" Sakura said, slyly grinning, "Oh, just because I know where I should go when I want to find Sasuke-kun now." She was satisfied with his response and simply smiled at him. Now that she knew, she truly hoped Naruto didn't mind having company over. Everyone heard Ino yell, "Sasuke-kun," and, "What are you doing in a place like this?" from behind them. "Can I just get some rest?" Sasuke replied with a sigh, "I don't even have enough energy to act like you're not there. Itachi is a monster." Since Sasuke had not really talked to Naruto in a long time, it was difficult to get personal information about him. Sakura didn't know how to phrase her next question delicately, so she just asked, "So what exactly does Sasuke-kun like to do when he's not at school?" Her best opportunity to get to know the real Sasuke she had ever had was to have the opportunity to learn things like this. Train. Naruto stated clearly, Deputy wants to be strong and he wants his friends to be strong since his job is dangerous. It's probably why we get along so well. He never has to worry about me getting my ass kicked or protecting me. Probably why he likes Q-chan too, after the fight they got into when I was in Taki. Does Sasuke-kun prefer girls who are stronger? Or maybe it's girls that do more than just come onto him? Sakura wondered doubtfully. Sasuke yelled from one of the spare rooms down the hallway, "Ino, get out so I can get some goddamn sleep. I don't like hurting girls, but I will set you on fire, I swear, to the delight of all." "I'm already more than hot enough, Sasuke-kun. Thank you though," Ino responded with a laugh. "Every day feels like hell," Sasuke uttered in a dejected tone. With a calm smile, Sakura acknowledged that she knew what needed to be done and that Ino had a significant advantage over her in their new rivalry for Sasuke's attention. Even though she still recalls how helpless she was to watch Naruto get beaten up when she went on that one mission, it wouldn't hurt to try and teach herself how to fight, if only so she could keep up with her friends who all seemed to be able to do so, if only for self-defense. What else was she doing with her summer, after all? "Thank you, Naruto," Sakura said, turning to face the home's owner who was in his kitchen and appeared to be debating between 2 cups of instant ramen. You're welcome, Sakura," Naruto said to her. "Something tells me that this place is going to be a lot busier than my old apartment was." Scratching his head, he realized that Sasuke chose the wrong time to show up if he wanted to keep this place as his last bastion of some sort of privacy and not quite sure what he did to get a thank you. XXX. After 2 weeks, Keisha-hine headquarters. Seated on a bed in the medical bay, Naruto spoke with Tsunade primarily while holding a balloon in his hand. "So what's up, Tsunade-ban?" he inquired, concentrating on something with the balloon before popping it and receiving a growl in return. Naruto grunted in acknowledgement as Tsunade, seated in a chair in the aisle between the beds next to him, said, "Jiraiya's going to send you on another mission next weekend." But before she could say anything more, Naruto said, "I thought you were past step 1 already." "Yes, I am," Naruto said. "In fact, step 2 was easier than step 1. I had to pop a rubber ball, but since I had the spinning chakra thing down already, it worked like clockwork." Tsunade nodded, knowing full well that step 1 was difficult because of Shizune's records on him and her own regular checkups on the child. So that one was easy to do. "Now I'm just trying to keep the sphere shape of the Rasengan all together with everything I already learned," he returned to the original topic. "I don't know, he didn't tell me." Tsunade admitted with a smirk, "I do know that it's going to be a mission guaranteed to have conflict. He wants to know what you can do, so no matter where he winds up sending you, I can guarantee that it won't be within city limits and that you had better have your supplies ready for anything." And be ready to be gone for a while, a few weeks I would say. While nodding, Naruto scowled and said, Q-chan isn't going to like that. If I'm guaranteed to have to fight, then I'm definitely going to make sure she stays back. Observing Tsunade's disapproving expression as he brought in non-Kei Shaheen employees for missions, he said, I said she's not going with me. I took her with me for the mission to find you because we weren't supposed to fight, and other than the Fight Club thing that got me money, we didn't. Yeah, whatever, brat, Tsunade said prior to letting him know about another matter. Anyway, Kakashi is supposed to be going with you as your captain on this one, and you can both talk and pick a third to go with you both. It can't be someone as high up as Obito though. We need our elites for more important things than backup for someone that's already high level. I am 15 years old. Naruto grinned and said in a lighthearted manner, while making a grandiose gesture. Who's running this army? He asked. No matter how bad the mission got, it should have been sufficient. One thing he was certain of was that, whether or not Kakashi assumed an ascended form, he was still the man and could still kick assholes when the chips were down. He didn't fear the upcoming mission because he could choose his own backup, and he already knew who he wanted to go on the adventure with. XXX Tenten, who was discovered by Naruto in the headquarters training area, shrugged and said, Alright. You said that we should be leaving next week and it'll take a while to complete, didn't you? He asked her, successfully distancing herself from her practice of hurling weapons of all sizes and shapes at moving targets. Nodded. Yeah, I'm surprised you're this eager to go along with it though. What about your summer? Tenten laughed off his comment. My summer? What exactly am I going to do other than do stupid chores around the base and wait on reserve for a spot to open up for me? Meanwhile you throw me all kinds of work. Tenten smirked and jabbed Naruto in the chest. You keep me getting work. Work makes Tenten very happy. She began enumerating things on her fingers. The mission to find Tsunade-sama, when you commissioned me to work on your motorcycle, and now this. Reacting to her throw, Naruto smiled and said, You know, work makes Naruto happy too. When I'm bored illegal things happen. And this one's supposed to get us paid, which is never a bad thing. Tenten enjoys financial gain as well, Tenten remarked, considering her prospective salary after learning how much she had received for the Tsunade mission. Naruto said, Everyone likes money, as they concluded packing Tenten's equipment and departed the training area. Now that the team's ranks were complete, Tenten started walking with him to find Kakashi and ensure that everything was ready for the mission the following week. So where are we going? Tenten asked as they entered the office where Kakashi was typically found, finding the man who was sitting at his desk and holding a book. How should I know? Replied Naruto. I just found out I had a mission not even 10 minutes ago and invited you. What can I say? Misery loves company. Before throwing a scroll at Naruto and Tenten, Kakashi remarked, We're supposed to be going to a city in Nami no Kuni to begin with. Tenten caught the scroll in his hands and opened it, saying, Check it out kids. And so Tenten and Naruto did. The mission is to support and aid in the downfall of the Nami no Kuni branch of the Gado Corporation. Pay rate. 400,000 Ryo operatives assigned. Kakashi Hitaki, Naruto Uzumaki. _ Tenten excitedly filled in her name with a pen from Kakashi's desk after that. Mission details. To support a particular group in achieving their goals. According to the information provided, the group in question is a band of militia that was established to fight against the hostile takeover of their land by a large corporation's owner. Although you will be working independently, you are expected and encouraged to work in tandem with the militia you have a contract with to coordinate your efforts. Avoid stepping on each other's toes, if for no other reason. Until the goal directly causes the client's death or involves anything the client considers off limits, use any means necessary to accomplish it. Point of contact. Goken Kuon Shi, Starpoint Bar, in Cold Harbor City. Starting date. June 13th. After he and Tenten understood the main points of what was going to happen, Naruto closed the scroll once more. So next Tuesday the message will be sent to them that we're on our way. Understood, he said, grinning and clearly eager to get back to work. After putting down his book for a moment, Kakashi nodded to Naruto and said, I'm sure I don't need to tell you already what to be prepared for. The two younger mercenaries exchanged a serious look before turning back to Kakashi. Rin told me about how you handled the last mission where you knew you were going to fight and were able to plan your operation. Let's hope that this time isn't as chaotic. Was the tone of voice he used, which was unusual for his lazy brother figure and indicated to Naruto that this was a particularly important mission. Having not been on a mission where she was guaranteed, Tenten followed Naruto with a curious, how should I get ready for this? After he threw the scroll back at Kakashi. Naruto had been on at least one aggressive nature, based on what she had just heard. You have parents too? Naruto asked as they headed towards the exit to make preparations for leaving. Weapons, clothes, ready-to-eat food, medical supplies since none of us are medics. He tried listing the items she might need. Just take anything that you might need. If you can carry it and you think you need it, then it's not useless to bring. After giving him a strange look and nodding, Tenten said, "Adopted. What does it matter?" "It doesn't really, but I just think you're going to want to make sure they know you love them before you say goodbye to go on this one." "I don't like it for some reason," Naruto said, shaking his head as they approached the door and waving goodbye to Haku, who was manning her usual spot as Kei Shaheen's unofficial greeter. Tenten was momentarily stopped in her tracks by his statement and wondered what made him think that. "By the way, you've been stabbed before, right? Somewhere important?" Tenten was wondering what made him think that. I've been stabbed in my arm before pretty badly. I've gotten cut a few times too. They were pretty deep," Tenten said, blinking before responding hesitantly. After giving her a brief moment of intense stare, Naruto patted her cheek and shrugged. I would have thought that someone that uses weapons like you would have gotten stabbed in body or something before." "Oh well, you'll probably get stabbed on this one and then you can see what that's all about." "Wait, are you saying I'm going to get stabbed? Who the fuck is possibly going to stab me? Naruto? Naruto, don't you walk away from me. Don't you put those goggles on, damn you, and get that smirk off of your face. Turn that engine off and answer my questions, you jerk," Tenten yelled as she watched him walk away. XXX. After 3 days, Naruto was sitting on his rooftop patio as night descended on the city, watching Kyuubi practice her formal katas while wearing a black gi and pulling her red hair back into a ponytail. Naturally, Naruto refrained from participating due to his complete lack of formal training. "So your parents know you're here?" he inquired of her. Kyuubi turned to face Naruto as she practiced. "You don't feel too good about something. I can feel it. What's the matter?" She nodded and went on with her gestures. Dad flipped for a second as expected, but it didn't take long for Mom to get him to pipe down. "She really likes you, Naru-kun." Since she had already surmised that something was wrong, Naruto chose to inform her right away. "I've got another mission coming up next week. This one might take a while. A week or even more depending on how tough things turn out to be." With a slight hum, Kyuubi expressed her understanding. "And I'm guessing that I can't come with you again?" she inquired, sounding sad but maintaining her katas. "I understand by now. You have a certain way of handling things in missions when you fight. I get in the way of that since I don't know the first thing about paramilitary work." Chuckling. "You could always join Kei Shaheen and I could get you trained on operational work. You'd make a good mercenary, you know." "Thank you, Naru-kun." Kyuubi grinned and tugged at her lips. "But you know why I'm not going to do that. I'll just wait for you to come back like I always do. It's no big deal." She came to sit in his lap and stopped using her katas. "You're coming back, aren't you?" she asked. "I'll always come back. There's no way I'm not coming back." Naruto embraced her tightly and said, "All you need to do is keep an ear out for the sound of my motorcycle. No matter what, no matter how long it takes, when you hear that you'll know that I'm back and I'm okay." With a faint giggle, Kyuubi ran her fingers through Naruto's hair and said, "That's actually really corny, you know, but it's still sweet. Just don't go and get yourself blown up, okay? I don't think you'd be quite so cute scattered in 1,000 pieces." Naruto answered, "There's nothing cute about me right now. An explosion or two might just improve my looks." Kyuubi then sighed with satisfaction as his fingers rubbed his scalp beneath his disheveled hair. "So what are you going to do while I'm gone?" Naruto asked. "Keep watch over your place since you gave me a key, hang out with our friends to fight the crushing boredom of summer, train, think about whether or not you're dying in a ditch. You know, the usual stuff," Kyuubi replied, grinning and flashing her slightly sharpened canines. She gave him a thoughtful look in response. "Well, I wish I could say I'd return that last sentiment, but from personal experience when I'm bleeding out and ready to die in a ditch I really don't think about loved ones. I think about how much dying by bleeding out sucks, and wonder if the ditch I'm laying in is going to give me an infection if I live," Kyuubi said, grinning as Naruto laughed sarcastically and returned her grin. With a deadpan expression, Kyuubi bit him gently on the shoulder and whispered, "You are a strange and dangerous person, Naru-kun." Her voice was muffled, but she still had her bite firmly in place. He smiled and said, "And yet you're crazy enough to be into me." XXX. Konohagakure Police Training Grounds, the following Monday. Sasuke was with Itachi, who was keeping a close eye on him following Orochimaru's meek attempts to obtain his younger brother's bloodline. Itachi was in charge of the actual trainees in the police force preparation program this afternoon. Sasuke was made to accompany Itachi, But he wasn't really complaining because it stopped Itachi's cruel training techniques for the time being. Sasuke was growing weary of seeing the teenage trainees struggle as they ran the obstacle course in their black shorts and gray shirts. It's usually infuriating to watch someone else struggle with something that you can do easily the first time around. Should I go out there and run the course really quick to show them how it's done? He asked, having seen several people struggle. Itachi, who was keeping a close eye on anyone who showed potential, said, "No, Sasuke. This is the first day of the summer class. It wouldn't do to have you breaking their spirits with what you can score now. Still though." A tiny smile appeared on Itachi's lips as he asked Sasuke, who was getting agitated. "I hope you know that I'm going to kick your ass before summer's out, Itachi," Sasuke growled angrily. Itachi answered in a dry way that Sasuke wasn't sure was sarcasm or not. "Yes, I'm sure you will, Sasuke." The trainees gathered around Itachi, who put his fingers to his mouth and blew to make a whistle noise. "I hope that made you realize just how difficult things can be for you if you decide to continue our training program. I am Itachi Uchiha and I will be one of your trainers for the summer. I expect you all to work hard and to listen to my instructions without fail. Sasuke here will be my assistant and will help me demonstrate the things that you will do, like this," he said, gesturing to Sasuke, who nodded and assumed a starting position. "No chakra on the walls either." "I am aware of that," Sasuke said sourly, then launched into a sprint that was barely visible to the uninitiated onlookers. His first challenge was a structure akin to a pit that required him to run over logs in order to cross. As he moved to the part where he was jumping over gaps of varying distances, he never once faltered in his gait or glanced down, even though jumping over objects was again effortless. The 60-foot wall that required scaling with a rope came next, and Sasuke accomplished this task without blinking before sliding down the rope on the other side and skipping the necessary steps to descend. Stopped in front of Itachi and exclaimed, "Time!" while blowing on his burnt hands. Sasuke ran a lap around the home stretch track. Itachi said, glancing at his stopwatch, 49 seconds. Sasuke suppressed his rage at not being able to beat Itachi's time of 41 seconds. "I messed up when I went down the wall, didn't I?" he thought to himself as he was losing time. Itachi comforted Sasuke, saying, "It's okay, Sasuke. Nobody can be exactly like me. Sometimes even I have trouble doing it." Ignoring his angry little brother, he turned to the startled students, who had barely managed to complete their class in less than 3 minutes. "Now I will not ask you to get under 1 minute by the end of our time together, but I hope you paid attention to the more technical parts. Additionally, do not do what Sasuke did and slide down the opposite side of the wall. You will fall and probably die." "Foolish little brother." Sasuke rolled his eyes, glaring at the back of Itachi's head while wearing his Sharingan. Class dismissed. The students looked shocked. As the majority of the students left the area, some of them, mostly the male trainees, complained about how ugly Sasuke had just made them all look, while some of the female students exclaimed over how awesome he and Itachi were. With a sigh, Sasuke said, "We have to come back here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, don't we?" Itachi nodded, and Sasuke expressed surprise, saying, "Damn it, I'm going to invest in a Sakura?" as he noticed the familiar girl with pink hair waving at him. With a clear look of surprise at seeing someone he knew in the program, she walked over to say, "Hi Sasuke-kun. What are you doing here?" Sasuke thought to himself as he felt like rubbing his eyes to make sure he was seeing this. "Trying to get some extra training." Sakura responded, "I know a little Aikido, but not much, and if I'm going to be friends with you or Naruto or any of our other friends I have to know how to do more than just hide right. He got really hurt when we went to Takikakure that one time and I couldn't do anything to help him at all." Itachi interrupted before Sasuke could respond, saying, "Sakura actually did quite well in comparison to all of the other females on the course. She did better than a few of the men too, 3 minutes and 12 seconds. Good work Sakura Haruno." He then turned to leave. Then Sakura turned to face Sasuke, who simply gave her a look and laughed, saying, "I hope you're really sure about doing this, Sakura. It's going to get harder, you know. If I were you I'd pick a focus for your training since direct fighting doesn't seem to be your forte." Sasuke then turned to leave, saying, "But that's just me. You don't have to listen to what I say." Sakura walked in a daze to the outside of the training ground to wait for her ride home, not sure how to take that. "He actually said more than 5 words to me and he didn't seem as if he was looking down on me," she thought to herself. XXX. Bridge to the island, mainland, Nami no Kuni. While waiting in line for a toll, Naruto and Tenten sat in the company-provided car, which was driven by Kakashi. Tenten was twitching her eye due to the price, saying, "Are you kidding me? 100 Ryo as a toll? no toll in Hai no Kuni goes over 20 ryo. With the money in his hand, Kakashi calmly said, "Relax, Tenten. There are quite a few problems that are more serious that we'll have to deal with once we get there. This is nothing in comparison to that. There's no need to raise a fuss over nothing," he said, pointing to the insignia on the toll booth that revealed it was operated by the Gado Corporation. And it was true. Kakashi was certain that the armed guards stationed at the border did not belong to Nami no Kuni because, if the tolls were under Gado's authority, then what else could? From his spot in the passenger seat, Naruto said nothing, wanting only to get out of the car and stretch his legs. "Next time we go to another country I'm getting a plane ticket. This road trip crap is for the birds." Was not his idea of the ideal scenario, nor was spending an entire day in that car. Behind the car's tinted windows, Kakashi changed into what appeared to be an older version of Naruto, saying, "I don't trust the airlines, Naruto." As they prepared to go to the toll booth. After paying and accepting the welcome to Nami no Kuni, Kakashi rolled up his window and let his transformation happen. Naruto looked dry at Kakashi. "You know, instead of wasting chakra by using hands, you could have just taken off your mask if you didn't want to look suspicious, Kakashi ni." With an eye smile, Kakashi turned to face him and said, "You're right, I could have." Back in the seat, Tenten burst out laughing as Naruto continued, "And I don't know why you just turned yourself into a bigger version of me either." "That wasn't you." Kakashi told him, "That was the man that helped to train me when I was younger than you. Uncanny resemblance, right?" Tenten remarked from her position in the backseat, more like a dead ringer for Naruto. Naruto could see her smiling face in the rearview mirror as she leaned forward and pulled on his cheeks, saying, "Aside from the whisker marks, the fact that Naruto's eyes are sharper, Naruto is tanner, and the guy you transformed into looked way more mellower than Naruto on his best day, I'd say yeah, it's uncanny." She seemed to be enjoying herself in this. Tenten kept stretching his cheeks, showing how bored she had been with the trip, and Naruto developed a tick mark on his head. "I would bite you, but you need all of your fingers to throw stuff and hack into things," Tenten said. XXX. Starpoint Bar. Goken Kuon Shi. After parking the car, the squad noticed how destitute the area appeared and proceeded to walk through the town. Tenten said with a bewildered expression on her face, "I don't get it. This is supposed to be a harbor city that gets commerce from Hai no Kuni, Mizu no Kuni, Kaminari no Kuni, and dozens of smaller places." Naruto was currently cursing his enhanced senses because, despite only being 4 blocks away, he could smell a drug lab. A part of him desired to locate it and send an explosive clone inside to blow the place up, but doing so would give them away as an advantage over their real target since it would warn them of impending trouble. Kakashi inquired, "Are you alright, Naruto?" Though not as well as Naruto, he was also able to smell it. He could only speculate as to how Naruto felt, but he could tell that it wasn't a good feeling when he saw Naruto pull his goggles down over his eyes to hide the flashes of red in his eyes. Naruto flexed his fingers to prevent his claws from showing and uttered, "It's pissing me off. This place reminds me of the way the Bowery in Konoha used to be." "Is that the place?" Tenten asked, pointing to a sign far down the street. Impressed by her natural vision, Kakashi squinted to see what she was indicating and nodded, "Yes, that's our meeting point with the client." With that confirmed, they moved toward the brightest building on the block and jumped back out of the way of the door as more than 30 raucous men emerged, some brandishing weapons and simple tools. One man trailed behind them as they passed through the doorway, making sure to lock it until he saw Tenten, Naruto, and Kakashi observing what had just transpired. He wore a black shirt and blue jeans, had black hair that was spiky, and had a rope tied around his head. He glanced at the foreigners for a moment before beaming broadly and saying, "You're the mercenaries I hired, aren't you?" "You're Kaiza?" Kakashi inquired, "You're the client?" Kaiza rubbed the area between his mouth and nose and replied, "Yep. Come with me, we're in a hurry right now," he said, breaking into a jog that made the other men keep up with him. He waved for them to follow him as he pursued the men who had left earlier. Naruto inquired, "What's going on?" pointing out that he was guiding them back the path they had originally taken. Kaiza was visibly upset as he kept running. Gado doesn't get enough out of the money he makes off of his regular business. His real profit that he uses for himself comes from the underhanded things that he does, such as dealing drugs. This country is as good as his. Our leaders are just puppets of his. The bridge to the mainland that my father-in-law built was seized by Gado, and he uses that as another way to keep us under his stranglehold. Kakashi had to suppress a sigh, knowing what this explanation was going to lead to. "So you're basically saying that for all intents and purposes we're here to help you with some kind of rebellion or coup?" Kaiza nodded. Rebellions and coups are meant to put down the leader of a country, This is just to get rid of one rat's control over us. He isn't the leader of anything. It's a coup, thought Tenten and Naruto at the same time, their expressions deadpan as they approached a cluster of warehouses where men were fighting between those who had left the bar and additional men who were with them, increasing the total number of attackers to as high as 100. They were all trying to break through the heavy iron gate in front of them, but they were stuck. Gritting his teeth to keep from growling aloud, Naruto was experiencing nerve damage from the smell of drugs being made. The only justification he needed to enter and wreck the place was the news that their client intended to close it down anyhow. "Get out of the damn way!" yelled the irate blonde child running towards them while sporting goggles, and the men were forced to back off as Naruto pulled his right arm back in preparation. "Come on, this is what I've been training for. Rasengan, spiraling sphere," he exclaimed. When Kakashi noticed a flawless blue chakra sphere form in Naruto's right hand, his one visible eye widened. He knows that jutsu already. It was 2 weeks ago that Jiraiya-sama promised to teach him how to use it. Does he already know how to do it? The men cheered, stunned but ecstatic, as Naruto slammed the blue ball into the gate and watched as the doors flew open. As the men sprinted past him and into the warehouse compound to start a fight, Naruto just stared at himself in amazement. "Oh my goodness," Kaiza exclaimed, sounding impressed. "I suppose that indicates whether or not I've already received my money's worth." After giving his right hand a quick glance and flexing it in an experimental manner, Naruto asked Kakashi, "Wow, I actually pulled it off. Great. So now what?" Just before Kaiza sprinted past him and into the compound, Tenten pulled a handful of small kunai to throw at targets while Naruto took his combat knife out of its holster under his pants. "Keep your phones on and stay in contact with me in case of problems arising." Naruto and Tenten both saluted Kakashi before taking off to fight. "Now I have to find Kaiza," Kakashi thought to himself before vanishing in a puff of smoke. "Sigh, we can't let our client die before our objective is complete," Kakashi said, sighing at how the man just ran into a battle with drug dealers. "So I guess we fight." XXX. The only apparent goal for the men Kaiza had taken was to beat up drug dealers and cause trouble in the name of trying to keep the streets clean. However, Tenten was fully in favor of Naruto's actual goal, which was to blow the compound to pieces as he had originally intended. Alright, so that was mostly Naruto's goal. Naruto split up and carried out his plans inside each of the 3 warehouses in the area, leaving the original himself and Tenten to take care of one on their own. In order to start working on that specific warehouse, the 2 young mercenaries were able to climb onto its metal roof. While Naruto silently carved a sizable opening for them to climb through by shoving his knife right into the metal roof, Tenten removed her backpack and searched inside for a scroll. "How are you doing that?" she asked him, wishing she could accomplish that with most of her weapons. When he had finished cutting a respectable portion of the roof and pulled it back to open it, he told her, "Wind chakra." Naruto pointed to the hole and said, "Ladies first." Tenten flipped him off and fell, landing on the warehouse's high support beams. "What do you see?" he asked her, his knife back in its sheath and his nose clamped shut from the smell, which was now 10 times stronger because he had an open path to the source. "Get your hand off of your nose, you big baby. What are you going to do once we get down there, fight with one hand?" she said, gesturing for him to follow suit as she looked up. Because of the dim lighting inside the building, Naruto activated the night vision feature on his goggles and located a private area where he and Tenten could descend to the ground. Holding onto her and covering her mouth to prevent her from making noise, Naruto then let go of the wind required for one of his more recent ninjutsus, Q-Teishi. Sudden stop. Just before they hit the ground, he mumbled softly, allowing them to linger for a brief period of time before slowing them down enough to land silently and upright. Tenten took a deep breath and gave Naruto a hard blow to the arm. "Tell me before you do something like that again," she hissed lowly. "I thought I was going to die." The two then sat down with their backs against a row of storage crates. With a scowl that she couldn't see through his goggles, Naruto rubbed his arm and said, "Well, you didn't, so there. Now what's the plan, because I was just going to set a spark and blow the place up." Blinking, Tenten surveyed the drug lab's crates before settling back into his chair. "Yeah, okay. Blow this place to hell so we can get on with it. Set that fireball, Naruto," he said. With a sly smile, Naruto created a blue fireball with his fingertip and said, "Kitsune Bai. Fox fire." He then got to his feet and threw the fireball over his head before crouching back down, with Tenten staring at the impending explosion. The explosion caused the wooden boxes to catch fire and warned the people inside that there were intruders nearby. It traveled about 10 feet before colliding with a sizable metal shelf that held additional crates. Tenten turned to face Naruto as the enemy started to panic, a dry expression on her face as he avoided making eye contact with her out of embarrassment. That was the single worst throw ever. Of all time, he said. With a feeble defense, Naruto pulled out his big Bowie knife and scratched the side of his head, saying, "Not my fault." He then cracked his neck to the side and got ready to fight the dealers, saying, "Well, who cares anyway? It's redemption time." "I can just do this," Tenten said, pulling out a small wad of what appeared to be raw plastic with a pulling pin at the top. She threw the wad to the intended target as it beeped quickly before exploding and engulfing a large area of the warehouse in flames. Ignoring the agonized cries of the few survivors, Naruto gaped at Tenten and exclaimed, "What the hell was that?" Tenten said, "Semtex. A plastic explosive," as she took out a metal orb that contained another pulling pin. She then reached for something else. She pulled the pin on that one too, just like she did with her previous projectile, and hurled it over the former lab. The orb burst, sending spikes flying in all directions and putting an end to the survivors' cries of, "And that was another weapon of mine, the porcupine grenade." Tenten winked at Naruto, causing him to shake his head as he opened the main door. "How violent," Naruto said as they both got up and moved toward the warehouse's main doors. "If I didn't already have a girlfriend that did stuff like that, I think I'd be in love right now. You see? My aim isn't always so bad, little miss 10 out of 10. He grinned as he watched flames shoot out of another warehouse where he had sent his clones. Before they could joke around anymore, they noticed a small child sobbing and escaping from 3 adults who were pursuing him. "It's okay now, you can stop," Tenten yelled to the young boy after Naruto knocked them all out with a long dropping axe kick. Tenten scowled and hurriedly threw 3 of her small kunai at them, hitting them in the back of their knees and sending them to the ground. Wearing a yellow shirt, a bucket hat, and green overalls, he stopped and turned to face them. He was holding a crossbow as well. "Who are you?" he asked. When Naruto approached him, he pointed to Tenten and said, "We're the mercenaries that Kaiza hired to kick these guys' asses. Don't worry about any of them, they're not going to hurt you anymore." Tenten responded, seemingly offended by the child's smile. "Yeah, don't be scared. What's the matter?" Tenten asked. The young man brandished his crossbow and exclaimed, "I wasn't scared, I was just getting some distance before I tore into those guys." "Just how much distance were you trying to get, kid?" Naruto belligerently asked. "If you'd backed up any further you would have had to mail them the bolts." Another nearby warehouse exploded, stopping them from laughing any longer at the irate little boy. "Man, my clones are on the money today. It looks like our job here is done, Tenten. Let's go find Kakashi ni." "Was that ironic? Wait, you were the ones that blew those places up?" "Hey, wait up," exclaimed the young child as they left him standing there by himself until he realized his mistake and ran after them. Following the battle at the warehouse complex that was taken over by drug dealers working for Gato, Kaiza and the terrified young boy from earlier picked Naruto, Tenten, and Kakashi up and brought them to their 2-story home on the outskirts of town, which was actually surrounded by a gorgeous view of the ocean. The still waters were full of small boats that were sailing all around. Compared to what the Keishahine mercenaries saw after entering Nami no Kuni through the bridge, there was a stark contrast. It felt like a sanctuary from the dilapidated, destitute-looking city they had traveled through to get here. When they arrived at the house, Tsunami, the mother of Inari and Kaiza's wife, welcomed them. She was a pretty woman with long, dark hair who was dressed in a dark blue dress and a pink shirt. She gladly welcomed them into her home to hear an explanation of the circumstances from Kaiza after learning who they were and that they had been hired mercenaries brought in by her. When Gato Corporation first came here, everyone was excited about it. "We're a small country that only really makes money from fishing and transport. A nation of sailors really," Kaiza said, pacing around the living room with a nervous, excited, or both look on his face. Kakashi, Tenten, and Naruto all sat listening to his story as Tsunami brought them drinks. It was supposed to bring us another line of work. The economy of the entire country was supposed to pick up. But Gato brought in his own people to run everything. Work in all of his facilities. He was just buying up the cheap land and using the cheap resources that we had. We're apparently a major point for commerce in dozens of countries that line the coast," Kaiza said. At this, Kakashi spoke up. He was certain Jiraiya would not have granted the request so readily if that was all there was to the story. "I'm getting the feeling that there's more to this than that." Kaiza's eyes widened with rage at Gato. "You're damn right, there's more to it than that." When Gato got his foothold and started taking more and more land under his name on the island, he stopped caring about playing his criminal stuff low-key. "We don't really have any law enforcement in Nami no Kuni, we never had a need for it, and citizens would usually handle their own affairs together. But Gato's got tons of muscle behind him all over the country. Kidnapping, extortion, drugs. Kaiser let out an indignant sigh. Things weren't supposed to be like this. So we hired you to help us out. Maybe some professionals would be able to help us take that bastard down. Naruto yanked himself up from his seat and turned to face the door when Kakashi grabbed him and pulled him back down. Well, that's our job, Naruto shrugged. We're here to do what we can to help you out to win against this Gato guy. He then punched into his palm. So Kakashi let's just go find him and kick his ass and that will be that. Remembering that Naruto was still in his first year of employment, Kakashi gave him a stern look and said, "Hey, don't be so bloodthirsty. First of all, we just blew up 5 different drug factories and you and Tenten killed over 100 thugs." Kakashi pointed at Naruto, causing Tenten to raise an eyebrow in confusion. "Wait," Tenten interrupted, blinking in surprise. "How did it add up to be that much? I only threw 1 Semtex and 1 porcupine grenade and that only killed a dozen guys when I counted." When he noticed this, Kakashi clarified, "Naruto, or should I say Naruto's clones, blew up 3 warehouses by themselves, with the enemy still inside of them. So both of you killed over 100, it's just that Naruto killed way more than you did." Tenten palmed her face, whispering under her breath, "For the last time, I am not a sociopath. Why do people keep saying that?" Naruto, hearing his kill count, clapped his hands and threw his arms into the air triumphantly, old school style. Tenten screamed, leaping from her seat to punch him in the top of the head for being foolish. "You just heard that you killed 100 people and you're acting like you're going to get a medal for it. Were you dropped when you were a baby or something?" she asked. "Yes," Kakashi blurted out in a distracted manner, then realized that everyone in the room had turned to face him. "Oh, he thought to himself as he noticed Naruto staring at him with a betrayed look on his face. Tenten was also, because the idea that Naruto was dropped was merely a joke, and his only escape was to say, "Obito did it." "I can't believe it," Naruto exclaimed, shocked. "Obito dropped me." "Yeah, we all dropped you at least once. But in our defense you were a really squirmy kid and we were all like 12. Kakashi concluded with an eye smile and a thumbs up as if that made it better. "Obito, Rin, Shizune. Me." He shrugged now that the secret was out. Tenten comforted Kakashi by patting his back as Naruto just stared at him until the latter buried his head in his hands in self-grief. Before speaking to Naruto, Inari merely observed the scene with skepticism and said, "You took out that many of Gato's men? You don't even look that tough, they all looked stronger than you. You're a kid." After removing his hands and glaring at Inari, Naruto was sufficiently shaken from his reverie to say, "Kid, I don't care what I look like. They can look as tough and strong as they want to. Nobody looks tough after they get put in a hospital or into a coffin." As Inari retreated a step, Tenten shot a sardonic glance at Naruto and said, "Wow. That was certainly a kid-friendly comment." Naruto and Tenten nodded. "We need to know what we're about to get into," and Kakashi said, turning to face the 2 younger mercenaries under his command. "Right. I think we should wait until things settle down a bit from what happened in town earlier. Later I want you 2 to hit the streets and dredge up some kind of information from me that we can't get from our client. XXX. Konohagakure no Sato, the House of Kyuubi." "I really don't think this is such a good idea," Kyuubi said, her worried expression directed towards the person standing in front of her in her open backyard. She was standing in her workout clothes with her arms crossed over her chest and her fiery red hair pulled back into a ponytail for the time being. "Naruto and Sasuke-kun both said that you can fight, and I don't feel like going to Ino to help me get better," Sakura remarked, wearing the gray shirt and black shorts she had been given when she enrolled in the police force trainee program. "I don't think it's a bad idea at all. Then get her to help you out. She'd probably do less permanent damage to you than I would," Kyuubi said, gesturing to the side where Hinata was sitting and sipping tea. The lips quirked upward in a smile as Hinata noticed Kyuubi's remark and calmly took a sip of her tea before answering, "I didn't come to visit just for a spar or a fight of some sort. I could have stayed home and done that far easier. As a good host you should acquiesce to the request of your guests if it doesn't trouble you too terribly, Kyuubi-chan." With a sigh, the red-eyed girl turned back to Sakura and shot a brief glare at Hinata. "But if this is what you want, I could really hurt you, you know that, right?" she asked, dropping into her own fighting stance and demonstrating how important it was to use her Yuki-triggered claws when fighting. But she would most certainly not be engaging in combat with them against Sakura. "I may not be very skilled at it, but I do know Aikido, I'm just not wearing my uniform for practice." "I'm not helpless," Sakura said, frowning but maintaining her own ready stance in response to Kyuubi's question. Then, she noticed Kyuubi smirking, asking, "What's with that look?" Kyubi replied, "I can make fire and throw it at you. I know Aikido's supposed to be defensive and everything, but I don't see how they'd teach you how to counter a fireball." She closed her fist and extinguished the flame. "I'm not going to use any nin or genjutsu though. That's not fair." Kyubi held up an open hand and created a blue flame in her palm. Hinata nodded off to the side, agreeing, "Well, it's not exactly a sporty idea to use anything but hand-to-hand combat here." She then cocked an inquisitive head, asking, "You really don't fight like Naruto-kun after all, do you? Can we just do this already? This isn't the kind of thing I want the time to second-guess," Sakura said, tucking a few strands of hair behind her ear to ensure that her vision would be clear. "All right," Kyubi said idly before charging toward Sakura and making her back a few paces in an attempt to cope with his tremendous speed. Her initial attacks were probing, but it didn't seem that way because of the way she fought. Sakura might have lost an eye or been left with some permanent scars, but Kyubi managed to take a few hooking swipes at her face without using her claws. At minimum, Sakura could slant backward sufficiently to evade the initial few blows. The follow-through spinning back kick from Kyubi struck her in the stomach and sent her sprawling to the ground. She was unable to avoid it. With a hiss of pain, Sakura gripped her stomach and glared up at Kyubi, saying, "Ow," with a look that suggested she was trying to get her to soften her tone. "I apologize," Kyubi sheepishly said, shyly picking at her cheek before reaching out to help Sakura stand again. After accepting the assistance, Sakura was met with a ferocious grin from Kyubi and was suddenly struck in the stomach. "Bam!" Sakura exclaimed as she fell to the ground, coughing at the unexpected blow. "Are you okay?" she inquired. Sakura choked out, writhing on the ground and clutching her stomach. "Cough cough, what the hell? I wasn't ready. Why'd you act like you were helping me up just to punch me?" Kyubi sat down next to Sakura with it that said, "We are not point sparring. The sparring we do is actually toned down fighting. It's going to end up with someone getting hurt because pain teaches you what not to do to keep from getting beaten up when it actually matters. You know Aikido and that's good for you. You're a fledgling martial artist, but you're not much of a fighter." Still glaring at Kyubi, Sakura looked up at the nearby girl and muttered, "What's the big difference?" Kyubi's lips quirked upward slightly as she said, "They do not throw punches from the hip because they realize the practicality of protecting their face and body against tough opponents. Something especially important for us as women because why?" She finished teasing Sakura with a question. "Fighters are people that actually fight real fights. The gear they use to protect themselves during training isn't made of quarter-inch thick plastic because they actually get hit and hit others. They know if the techniques shown to them really work because they test them every day when they train." Sakura groaned at the idea of trying to advance in their relationship with Sasuke while sporting numerous scars on her face. "Because I'd rather not get my teeth knocked out or my nose broken," she exclaimed. "No way Sasuke-kun would think we're sexy with a busted grill," her inner critic bellowed. Kyubi gave a nod of affirmation. "And since we're basically street fighting with restrictions, it's a dog-eat-dog world here. If you fall onto the ground and you stay down there because you're not ready to get back up, then you're liable to get curb stomped. You have the option of saying you give up since we're just sparring, but if you give up here you'll give up in a real fight, and your opponent will probably do terrible things to you after they beat you, especially since we're women. So get used to not fighting fair, and get used to ignoring that feeling you've got in your stomach telling you to stay down, because if you stay down you're dead." Being the one giving advice on street fighting rather than the one receiving it felt strange. The majority of the explanation didn't even sound like her talking, so she must have been picking up more from her boyfriend than she realized. Sakura nodded and sat back down, but then she launched a surprise punch at Kyubi, finding herself right in the smirking girl's grasp. "What?" Sakura exclaimed, shocked that her covert move had failed. "Nice try at a cheap shot though. I guess that means you're ready to keep going then?" Sakura said, pale at the bright tone Kyubi had and the less than comfortable grip she had on her fist. "My dad has been training me for years and my boyfriend is a dirty rotten scoundrel who is the master of fighting like a punk." Kyubi grinned. Hinata refilled her cup of tea and offered helpfully from the sidelines, "Keep your hands up, Sakura-chan." XXX, Marina. Nami no Kuni. Naruto and Tenten made the decision to take a quick break at a marina after spending hours exploring the city to get a sense of the situation they were in. It appeared as though the majority of the fishing vessels there had not been moved in months. Since they had both seen Gato's goons prowling the area, it is likely that Gato also locked down the majority of the ships connected to the moors. All that was left for sailors to do now was to sit back and watch their ships rust in the ocean. The fact that this was the case infuriated them both. It wasn't wholly unfounded, though. Gado Corporation was a huge company with holdings across numerous nations, and based on what they had observed and heard, Nami no Kuni wasn't particularly into the grand scheme economy concept. Things were generally seen as okay as long as there was enough for everyone. It was a mostly middle-class to lower-class spectrum, but up until Gado appeared, it seemed to work. It suffered from the corporation's presence for reasons other than the unethical ones that encouraged crime and the like, and instead of raising the general standard of living. Because Gado's company had more capital, he was able to cut prices for products and services in the nation, below what any domestic company could sustainably lose money on. Gado was able to drive the majority of Nami no Kuni's smaller businesses to bankruptcy by accepting the relatively minor hit to his personal finances. As a result, he became the only supplier of goods that people needed, and he raised his prices to levels never seen before. He was now essentially integrated into the nation's economy, which was not a good thing. He was akin to a parasite, and the speed at which he was snatching the nation's life was anything but slow or subtle. In light of this, Naruto and Tenten had decided on a plan for how they would try to persuade Kakashi to handle the matter. Their goal was to rob him completely and seize everything from him. Once they had Kakashi's approval, they would figure out how to accomplish it. However, the reason they were taking a break at the marina was to perhaps brainstorm a way. Seated cross-legged on a mooring, Tenten said, "Naruto, hand me my thinking grenades. We need to sit and seriously think this one out if we're going to pull it off." As Tenten pried off the top and held one of the grenades in her hand, Naruto handed over a small crate and asked, "Where the hell did you get these?" Tenten said, "Matter-of-factly, I make them. Now shush up, I'm thinking." Then, with a contemplative expression, she removed one of the pins and threw it backwards over her shoulder. "Aha!" she exclaimed, as though it had triggered some kind of mental process, as it burst into the water behind them a moment later. She grabbed another thought along those lines and threw it into the water by her side. Whack! "Oh my god, he's dead!" exclaimed one of Gado's goons. They had arrived to look into the origin of the first explosion, and in the process, they had come dangerously close to Tenten's second grenade. Tenten thought to herself, that might work, as she deftly removed the pin from another grenade and tossed it in the same direction. Whack! Another man, terrified as another group of curious goons was almost completely destroyed by one of the explosives, yelled, "What's happening? Let's go tell Kakashi Taiko what we're thinking of." "Come on," Tenten exclaimed. Leaping off the mooring she had been sitting on and slapping Naruto on the shoulder. "We're going to need to write this down though, so come on." Tenten grabbed Naruto and dragged him out of the extremely disorderly marina before any real trouble could appear. Looking at the destruction caused by Tenten's grenades, Naruto allowed himself to be pulled around. All of this could have been avoided if just a few more people took the message of the log into their lives, he sadly uttered. XXX Kaiza sat there, listening to Naruto and Tenten explain that they wanted to rob Gado in order to remove his authority over the nation, and exclaimed, "You're out of your minds. I knew there was a reason I liked you all. Must have been one heck of a heist. So how'd you two come up with this one?" Kakashi asked them calmly and rationally, maintaining his neutrality towards the plan while he listened to the two younger operatives explain what they thought they should do. Tenten was the first to clarify, "Well, if we take all of the money he has sunken into this place, he'll probably just pull out of Nami no Kuni. He's staying here despite the mess that the rebellion groups all over the country are making because he's still making money. In the end, Gado can still pay everyone who works for him. He's still making a hefty profit with his control over the commerce in this country, and no one in the rebellion force has enough skill to actually get close to him in his mansion to make him think that he's in any trouble." Tenten nodded in agreement with Naruto. He's like some kind of dictator that still tries to live in his country and keep control of it with force. Going about everything like it's all normal, not taking the forces as a real threat to him, flaunting that he's rich and in control, only his army isn't as good as a real one from what we can see. Naruto grinned and said, "They can bully people and do most of the other things that actual occupation soldiers for guys like that do, but they aren't really trained or even decent fighters really. They're cheaper than real soldiers or mercenaries, so Gado keeps them around to do his legwork." "Stupid muscle," Kakashi uttered as he started to consider all the possible outcomes. "The dumbest actually." Tenten laughed out loud. "The thing about it is, pretty much no one Gado has is born in this country. They're all from other places he's set up shop in the past. They're all guys looking for some upward mobility on the ladder. But there's something else." She grinned and said, "Word tells us that Gado is in tight with the daimyo." Kaiza sighed and nodded. "Yeah, it's true." He rested his arms on the wall and continued to speak. "All the money that's in Gado's accounts, the first thing he did when he got here was he lined the daimyo's pockets with gold to have him look away. If the daimyo had figured something was worth taking care of, he would have run that scumbag out of here quick. He might be weak compared to larger nations, but he's still a daimyo. But now since he's sitting fat and happy with periodic payments from Gato, we had to hire you guys for help. He uses the daimyo's own personal force as his direct bodyguards so that his goons can hit the streets freely, all the while he has his own professional soldiers to keep him safe directly. Another reason why taking Gato's money would work. Naruto argued, if we leave that son of a bitch with nothing but a barrel to cover himself with, then he won't sink any more money into Nami no Kuni, not after such a heavy loss like what we're going to do to him. No money means no daimyo's men to cover his ass, no thugs getting paid, so they'll just leave or go to another place Gato has, and you guys yourselves will have money to help fix your businesses back up and fund your own force to chase him out of here on your own. Using our own two hands. Kaiza uttered, a grin lighting up his face. He disliked being dependent on Kei Shaheen and having to go out all the time. However, thus far, this plan seemed to be succeeding splendidly. But how are you two so sure about this? One person asked. Smiled sheepishly. I used to sneak into places and steal things, sometimes. And Tenten can break into any security system, so it's not like she's just getting all fired up about something she can't help with. I can make clones, so I can pull up the manpower to do all of the little things we need done. All we need right now is a plan. If Kakashi ni lets us go through with it, that is. He concluded, looking forward to Kakashi. Tenten was even going all out to get Kakashi to say yes by giving him puppy dog eyes. Kakashi didn't take long to respond, we're going to have to plan this out carefully, but it can definitely be done if you two are certain you can pull it off. And of course you have me to supervise. He gave an eye smile and quickly waved his arms about foppishly. Aren't you kids lucky? He said in his typical tone that others could take as sarcastic. Of course, as a married man, puppy dog eyes had all but lost their power over him. XXX. Konohagakure no Sato, early evening, Uchiha main house. Less than an hour had passed when Sasuke was woken up in his own bed by an intruder. He sat up abruptly, ready to fight, and said, "Oh, Itachi. You woke me up, you prick." As he calmed down, he yawned and rubbed his eyes. "What's up? You going to dress down my training from today or what?" After dismissing Sasuke's prick remark and taking a seat in the chair by his desk, Itachi said, "I found some things that you might want to know. You still wish to find Orochimaru, do you not, little brother?" Sasuke blinked in confusion as he heard Itachi mention Orochimaru, saying, "I thought you wanted me to back off of." Sasuke's eyes widened before Itachi decided to continue, "I'm going to be helping you when I can, and I'm going to do more than just training you like I currently am. Orochimaru is not in our country, Sasuke." "True," Itachi replied, throwing one leg up over his knee and sitting with his elbow propped up on the arm of the chair, holding his face up with a fist on his cheek. Itachi nodded, understanding what Sasuke was going for. "All I've got is that the guy was a major nutcase. Experimenting on people. And I know that he's apparently interested in me," Itachi said, a frown appearing on the younger brother's face. "I kind of figured as much from the start. I thought I could at least pick up a trail though, you know." Sasuke thought, "Why me though, I wonder?" "We don't know for now," Itachi responded, "but this is because despite your skills, and you are very skilled Sasuke, you do not have any contacts." Sasuke was about to suggest that Naruto was a source of information. "You don't have any foreign contacts. Naruto-kun may be your underground contact in Konoha, but his scope doesn't reach any further than Hai no Kuni at its greatest. He can't help you locate Orochimaru any more than you can do by yourself right now." With a hint of self-aggression, Sasuke bristled, asking, "Naruto's been helpful. How could you say, to his best friend?" Itachi raised his hand to stop his younger sibling. "I know that Naruto-kun has been helpful. He's helped you against agents that have been sent to retrieve you, and for that he has even more of my gratitude and respect than he already had before. He's given you the base information on your target, but he can't dredge up any more info than he's already given you. On the other hand, I do have foreign contacts that have been keeping their ears and eyes open for the last 12 years, ever since I was a young boy. And I've been inquiring about your little problem." With hope, Sasuke asked, "You know where Orochimaru might be?" Itachi was the greatest person in the world, if that were to be true. If Itachi could just dive in and find the man he'd been looking for several months, how? He would never be that good. "I'm not that good, Sasuke, and if I could find the man that easily, my contact would have been able to tell me that years ago. No, I simply asked around and something came up, but it's not really a definite path to Orochimaru." Itachi calmly corrected him, "I didn't say that." He could see the dry look on Sasuke's face, wondering why in the world they were having this conversation. Patience now. Obsession is an ugly thing, little brother. Itachi sardlyly added, don't turn this into your white whale. Sasuke attempted to counter, saying, just say what you want to say. Go ahead. I'm not obsessed, Itachi. There were rumblings of Orochimaru slipping into a megacure around several years ago. That sounded like something that could happen, so Itachi nodded at the sign to continue. That village was in the middle of the country, which was essentially under lockdown. Orochimaru only needed to keep quiet while hiding if he truly wanted to be somewhere safe. Under Hanzo's control, no one could really infiltrate with the intention of pursuing him across the countryside. Sasuke still found it extremely difficult, saying, damn, so even if I could locate him exactly, I couldn't touch him. That entire country is a death trap. Itachi told him, shocking Sasuke, who had assumed he was the main focus of the exchange. This isn't about Orochimaru per se. While in that country, I heard that he had dealt in the past with a group that dealt in hunting the occult, demons and the like. With his arms crossed, Sasuke declared, Itachi, demons don't exist. They might have once, but they're extinct now. True enough. Itachi went on, but that just meant that they took interest in the next best thing. Half-demons. Half-demons like your friends Naruto and Kyuubi. And by interest, you mean? Sasuke asked, noting that it didn't seem like anything very good. Imprisonment, experimentation, and outright extermination. Itachi said with a stern expression, it's close to a cult that actually has very strong legs in a megacure and that entire country in general. It's been active for several years and has been gaining prominence for the last decade at least. They believe that those that somehow accrued demonic blood in their lineage are evil. The lack of control that the stronger half-demons had wound up driving them insane through history, and a few of them were actually prominent leaders in a lot of the more war-torn regions in Ain's countryside. Town chiefs that would have their villages sack others. It has roots hundreds of years deep. Sasuke was now paying close attention. Orochimaru. But Naruto and Kyuubi are the only ones I know. Are there really that many that there would have to be a cult or something to take them down? Besides, neither of them seem to ever be berserk. I've seen them both fight hurt. Sure, Naruto's a little off, but that's more of a product of the environment kind of thing. Naruto-kun and his girlfriend's bloodlines aren't strong enough for them to lose control of their powers. Itachi went on to explain that Naruto-kun is far from weak, but compared to those that I'm talking about, he really isn't much of a blip on the radar. The bloodlines of most half-demons have become watered down and diluted, so that could be another reason. I can't really say. But there are actually a very large amount around. They just don't say anything. Some don't know, and many of them have no active abilities due to a lack of knowledge of how to use chakra. Chakra is the root of all special abilities. Sasuke asked incredulously, Naruto's weak? Itachi shook his head, but you just said. I said their bloodlines weren't strong. I didn't say that they themselves were necessarily weak. Itachi responded, the more direct a descendant of a demon, the stronger the bloodline is. It's like a Kekkei Genkai almost, only it varies in power from its first appearance. Have you seen Naruto-kun's ascended state? Sasuke nodded his head. Only the stronger demons have an ascended form. Which says a lot about the two of them. Even if Naruto-kun's is artificial, so to speak, he said, having heard about it but not seen it for himself. The question, why are you telling me this, Itachi? Why now? Why not when he told us about his half-demon stuff in the first place after his birthday last year? Was the first that jumped out at Sasuke, even though he wasn't sure where to start. I didn't believe it mattered then, but I've heard some things that disturb me further about this group now. Itachi's gaze actually conveyed the worry about a brotherly relationship. They aren't constricted to moving just around AIM. They travel further and further out on their crusade. And they are near fanatical, as my contact tells me. Warn Naruto-kun. There is a very good chance that he could one day run into them on his travels, and warn his girlfriend as well. Sighting them in our city isn't far-fetched at all either. How do you even know any of this? Sasuke inquired with skepticism. Having a contact is one thing, but the way you just told me all of those things about half-demons. Naruto doesn't even know that stuff, and he's supposed to be one. Itachi grinned. Naruto never asked questions either, did he? Never once did he question anything about his status. He just assumed it was just another card that life dealt him, and he stuck it with the rest of the hand he had received. Have you ever heard Naruto-kun complain about anything in his entire life that was out of his own control? His parents, his muddling through the streets, and more recently his discovery of his status as a half-demon 8 months ago. He didn't ever. After giving a brief explanation of his situation, including why he didn't have a family, actual money, or a sudden change in behavior, Naruto would move on, solving the problems he could solve or ignoring the ones he couldn't. In fact, Sasuke thought it was admirable. Never once did Naruto ponder on the statement, "That still doesn't explain why you know these things. Our eyes can see more than others can, dear brother. Don't forget that I've been all over the world, and I've seen and heard many things," Itachi said with a small laugh before turning on his Sharingan. In an attempt to justify his last question, Sasuke remarked, "Well, you never tell me stories about the things you used to do, Itachi." Itachi scowled at this and rose from the chair, heading for the door. "That's because the stories about what I used to do weren't meant for children, Sasuke," he said. "Why do you trust Naruto so much?" Sasuke asked when his brother got to the door. "It doesn't make any sense to me. He was shaping up to be a criminal when we met him, and now you treat him like, well, like he's a brother of ours. It can't just be because he knows our uncle. You two had the abduction incident all those years ago to bring you two together. Well, Naruto-kun and I had our own event that did the same," Itachi said plainly, looking into the room from the hallway. "Naruto-kun earned my trust. He was always a good boy, just a little misguided at times." He then left Sasuke, still somewhat confused, in his room, saying, "Naruto has kept my own secret from you and the others, Sasuke. You wouldn't look at me the same if you knew of it. Most likely, none of you would." XXX, 30 miles outside of Gokenkuon-shi, is Nami no Kuni. Tenten's attempt to breach the security of each bank in each nation where Gado Corporation held assets demonstrated that none of the banks held any of Gado's personal funds. It made sense enough that he had tried something similar elsewhere, as drugs and money smuggling accounted for a sizable portion of it. Gado had a large home. Once they saw the enormous location, Naruto and Tenten came to that conclusion. There was a jetty in back of the house, like most shoreside houses in Nami no Kuni, but it was 10 times bigger than anyone else's would have been, especially since Gado had no neighbors. A patrol was in place, moving up and down the area, and boats of all sizes, from yachts to speedboats, lined the jetty. Every significant area beneath his position was periodically lit up at night with floodlights, and motion-detecting lights were strategically placed throughout the area. In relation to the land, it had been cleared so that there was nowhere for anyone to hide or plan an invasion. Although this infuriated Naruto's little environmentalist, from a security perspective, it made sense once more. Even if they could avoid the lights everywhere, entering the house would be difficult because it was enormous from the outside and was completely encircled by guards and motion detectors. There was a sizable guardhouse on the property, which was the source of Gado's guards. There was an alert button inside the guardhouse as well, and when it was pressed, it would call in the daimyo's army to eliminate the threat that had originally prompted the alarm. It would be disastrous for everyone if that was set off. Naruto spoke to the girl through his headset while wearing special goggles made for him by Tenten, saying, "This totally sucks." Tenten was hanging off the top of a tree at the end of Gado's cleared-out land, wearing his black skulking gear to blend in with the dark, taking a different approach to surveying the house. "How are we even going to get close to turn any of the alarms off in the first place with those damn lights everywhere?" Tenten asked himself. Tenten's voice came through his headset, "That's why we're scouting the house to see if we can even do it in the first place, genius." "And when have you ever done something like this before anyway?" she asked. Naruto calmly answered, "Don't worry about it. Since trying to expunge his criminal record from the Konohagakure police force's files 2 years prior, he hadn't broken into any high-security locations in years." That hadn't very amused Itachi, who said, "Just tell me exactly how in the hell you think we're going to pull this off. Since we won't be able to get close at night because of those lights, we'll have to do this during the day. The motion detectors won't be a problem either, trust me. The real problem is that damn alarm device they have set up to call in the daimyo's soldiers. We've got to find a way to get rid of that or we're dead." Naruto asked his companion, "You think they'd lock down the bridge out of the country?" Tenten continued, "We'd never get out of here if we got busted prematurely, so we need to get the fuck out of here with the money in a hurry once we take it." Tenten added, "The bridge, the coast around the city and probably the entire west side of the country." Naruto gave himself a nod. Since it appeared that the people of Nami no Kuni took care of their own affairs, he had no interest in seeing what the prisons there were like, if any existed at all, or if they would even be given to anyone. The mainland is like 30 miles away. That's a long way to take a shit ton of money, Tenten. 1 million ryo. I think we should get paid more if we pull this off. Gado would probably just gut them and anyone else he thought was involved. Then, he heard Tenten laugh aloud over the line. "What's funny about that? I was kind of serious." "You think that Gado only has 1 million in his vault?" Tenten responded with another round of laughter. "Gado himself is worth over 500 million and he doesn't use banks for his own personal money. When we rip him off, we're walking out with at least 50 million. This house means he's setting up here for the long haul to consolidate his business in Nami no Kuni, so it might even be more than that. With all that money, Naruto was only able to listen to Tenten and sigh. Yeah, we're definitely not getting paid enough for doing this. He would never have to work in his life again. Whoa, what was he thinking? He would quickly find a method to waste it all so he could return to his work. He was overly fond of his work. Too true. But 400,000 Ryo isn't really anything to sneeze at. No need to be greedy, Naruto, Naruto grinned and answered, referring to himself in the third person as he turned off the zooming feature of his goggles. The suntanned Superman is far from greedy. Maybe not, but it was going to be split 3 ways, which ultimately wouldn't have even come close to the bankroll he'd get from stealing all of Gado's loot. Especially since all you did was just use the generalized definition for being greedy. Tenten replied, but back to work. When we hit this place, we're going to have to be very fast. I need to get inside and look at his vault so that I know what I'm busting into when the time comes. That was something the contractors that built his house didn't have for us when we asked. Naruto began to descend the tree he had been in, saying, you mean bribed and threatened to keep their fucking mouths shut. Naruto and Tenten had done the real work in the threatening after questioning the commitment of those they had bribed with the question, are you done? Because I'm done, while Kakashi had paid for the bribery. Good, because I'm so ready to get out of here. Tenten felt relieved. I need to know about his vault though so I can crack it on the spot. Leave that to me. I'll have it for you by tomorrow. Won't you need to practice on another one just like it beforehand? Said Naruto, unconcerned about the situation. What is this, a movie? I'm not going to use a drill and a blowtorch or a stethoscope in my hearing. This isn't the 50s, you Luddite. Oh fuck you, little Miss Technophile. Naruto replied with maturity. I don't use tools or technology to break into shit, Tenten. I just steal stuff that I can automatically get into. You could probably hack a desktop computer with your phone right now. Yep. I don't even have to hang up first to do it either. After leaping from the tree, Naruto wiped his hands on his pants and said, show off, let's head back to Kaisa's place and begin putting this plan together. XXX. Konohagakure no Sato, the house of Kyuubi. The sound of her phone ringing in the middle of the night caused Kyuubi to sigh to herself. She sat up, rubbed her eyes, and checked her caller ID before responding. What the fuck do you want, Sasuke? It's 3 AM, you insomniac. She spoke weary, putting her head back on the pillow. Nice to talk to you too. Sasuke replied sarcastically. I tried to call Naruto first, but apparently he doesn't get bars in wherever the hell he is in Nami no Kuni right now, so I'm calling you. I've got something to tell you both. Kyuubi was grateful that it was summer and she didn't have any urgent tasks to complete tomorrow. She was prepared to listen to Sasuke instead of delaying it until at least tomorrow because of this. We'll get talking before I nod off. What's up? She said. Apparently there's this group out there with a vendetta against people with demonic lineage. Sasuke said, causing Kyuubi's eyes to mouth to loosen up. They're supposed to be based outside of Hai no Kuni, but they're a group without borders pretty much. I know that you and Naruto are plenty tough, but I just wanted to let you know about them. Itachi said that Orochimaru's trail led him to them and he was telling me so I could tell you guys to keep a lookout. They could probably come searching as far into Hai no Kuni as Konoha if they wanted to. Without speaking to her friend, Kyuubi thought to herself, no. Not again. Not them. Please don't bring them up, Sasuke. I wish not to be informed about them. After he had finished speaking, Sasuke asked, Kyuubi? When he never heard her speak again. Hello? You there, or did you fall back asleep? Finally speaking, Kyuubi took a minute to gather her thoughts before saying, I'm here. She swallowed the lump in her throat and said, so these crazies want to kill people just for having demon descendants? That's really messed up. Tell me about it. How would they even know without being told? I mean, you and Naruto never even bring it up in front of anyone except me. Is it like that for all of them? When Kyuubi realized what she had said, her eyes widened, and I shouldn't have said that out loud. She must have been more tired than she realized. Most people don't know until they are told by another that they have demonic blood unless it's obvious. It's like you can feel it when you look at someone whether they are or not, and sometimes you don't know it until later. Kyuubi knew Naruto was demonic because, when we first met, I kept wanting to jump his bones randomly. Bochika wow wo. Damn it Obito Oji. Suddenly Kyuubi uttered the words, forget that. Why are you talking about them anyway? Because Naruto goes on missions all over the place all of the time and he's used his ascended form twice. If word ever gets around to those guys they'll know how to find him, and he leaves the country a lot so there might not be anyone around to watch his back. I just wanted to give him a heads up, so maybe I'll tell him tomorrow. I'll either tell him in the morning, or if he doesn't have any bars, then either I'll tell him when he gets home. Is that okay? Kyubi chirped, trying to sound upbeat and bright despite the sinking feeling in the pit of her stomach. She could almost hear Sasuke chuckling. That's good with me as long as it gets to him, I guess. It's between you two anyway. I'm just relaying some information from Itachi's contact that he told me about. Remember, if anything actually comes of this crap, to call me though if you need help. Thank you, Sasuke. You're a great friend. It's probably nothing, but I'll tell him. Good night. Kyubi thought to herself, you can't help Sasuke. No one can help. Later. The two's conversation came to an end at that point. Rearranging her phone on her nightstand, Kyubi curled into a ball in her bed and pulled her covers up to her throat in an attempt to defend herself against the feelings she was experiencing. No. We ran all that way just to get away from them. Mom and Dad said we'd be safe in Konoha, she said, trying to distract herself with other ideas. Her parents were still with her. Here she had good friends who were also very good fighters in their own right. Her boyfriend had the support of a whole private military company. Her village had a real police force to protect residents and maintain order, and if it ever came to that, her previously mentioned boyfriend would gladly dive into the depths of hell itself for her. But all of that still meant very little, as she had seen in the past. It was a nice little daydream to live in Konoha. It was nice to be able to feel safe again for 9 months. Everything was nearly as it usually was. She was very much like everyone else. Nearly. Because it didn't matter what she had just been thinking about to calm herself. She could never just let it go from her mind, so in the end it wouldn't matter the way it did before. Not her, not Sasuke, not Naruto. Nobody would be able to stop them because nobody ever has. They would find her family the same way they found her relatives. They were very good at keeping things secret, at hiding in plain sight, so she was surprised that Sasuke even knew enough about them to warn her. However, he never did identify them, so ultimately, he was completely ignorant, not enough to be of assistance when necessary. To them, she and her kind were simply monsters, and the only thing a half-demon could do was flee. Nothing could be hidden. After they had located you once, they would follow you around like bloodhounds, finding you again, even if it took years. Fighting was always an option, but they were a formidable force, and you would eventually succumb to them as most of her clan had. They were skilled at taking down half-demons. The loved ones of the fallen would see you as a monster and would be determined to exact revenge on any half-demon, so every number you managed to take down in self-defense would bring at least 2 more to the fallen's place. And their gods desired to save the world by means of blatant genocide, eliminating all half-demons and those descended from demonic figures. Shutting her eyes, Kyubi attempted to slumber away her own thoughts on the subject, but she was aware that she would not be sleeping that night. The Red Dawn will bring about a new daybreak that will cleanse the world, she uttered, quoting phrases that had haunted her dreams, Akatsuki. They would undoubtedly be haunted by those words tonight and for many nights to come. Omake. First origins: how Sasuke and Naruto met. December 29, 2004, 6 years ahead of the start of the storyline. Naruto Uzumaki, age 8, Sasuke, age 8, and Itachi, age 14. A healthy-looking little blonde boy with cheek whisker marks was sitting on a bench in a rather large, empty cell that contained a single toilet and sink. He was dressed in small blue jeans, an orange skullcap, and a red winter coat. In case you hadn't guessed it by now, Naruto Uzumaki was his name. Because he was currently being held in a holding cell in one of Konoha's police stations, which are conveniently located throughout the city, Naruto was feeling a little scared. Though he could have been inside with real criminals, it could have been worse, he supposed. No, sir, he wasn't a criminal in the slightest. The fact that Kakashi ni, Obito ni, and Rin Ni-chan were currently on a lengthy mission outside of town wasn't his fault. Who else was going to provide him with enough cash to buy food? Foolishly, he went through all of his cabinets and refrigerator in the first week and vowed never to do that again. Alright, so perhaps picking up the beef jerky bag during his shoplifting spree amounted to overspending, but it was the holiday season, Christmas and New Year's. I thought it was time to celebrate. It was just his luck that the manager, the only person in the store who would have given a damn if he had stolen anything, was working the register when his stupid bag fluttered inside his coat. The strange noise his coat made before his gum was even scanned let Naruto know he was busted when he reached up to place his fake pack of gum on the conveyor belt. Naturally, he booked it out of the store, unwilling to part with his hard-earned goodies. But before Naruto even reached his escape points on the streets, that manager was nipping at his heels, indicating that he must have practiced recreational track at some point in his life. The bastard was incredibly fast if he could track Naruto down. Unfortunately, once Naruto decided he wasn't going to shake him and turned to take care of business, he wasn't as good at fighting as he was at running. And he was in jail now for assault. However, the man had no intention of filing charges because he couldn't go to court and have a small child who had knocked him out proven guilty. If he did, he would never be able to move on, so Naruto would eventually return home. He was being held for the time being, but it wouldn't be too bad. While he was there, they would provide for him, wouldn't they? Perhaps prison wasn't all that horrible. At that precise moment, a teenager who must have been related to Naruto in some way, came strolling in front of his cell. Even by Naruto's small standards, the teenager was tall. His black hair was pulled back into a ponytail, and he had tear ducts beneath his eyes, giving him onyx eyes that resembled the incredibly fast police officers who originally caught Naruto. He was dressed in black pants, a combat vest issued to all field officers, and a basic back shirt with an upturned collar. The young boy was dressed in a gray shirt and black shorts. Naruto silently chuckled at his black hair, which resembled a bird's behind, and his black eyes, which were similar to his relatives. It appeared as though he had just finished training or working out. Or else. Just because you're a child doesn't mean that you don't have to obey the law. You can be put in here just as easily as any adult you've seen me or any of the others arrest. Just like little Naruto-kun here. The larger teenage boy said, ignoring Naruto's obvious scowl at the idea that a stranger was mentioning his name as if he knew him personally. You see, Sasuke. Naruto used his name as a pretext to say, "Hey, Mr. Cop Guy." With a rather pathetic sigh, he hopped off the bench and headed for the bars. "Is there any chance of me getting any food while I'm here?" he asked. The young child gripped the bars and peered up at Naruto with curiosity, but the teen just stared at him. Naruto looked away from him but was able to nod. "Well, when you do things like that, then an officer is assigned to you to make sure you stay out of trouble and keep from doing crimes in the future. They're called parole officers. And I believe that you're to be assigned to me. My name is Itachi Uchiha, and this is my little brother Sasuke. He's a trainee." The older boy knelt down to Naruto's level right by the bars. "Hello, Naruto-kun. You know that you're in trouble, don't you? That what you did was wrong?" Itachi was the youngest police officer Naruto had ever seen, and he had no idea that young children could be police trainees. "So am I going to prison? Like in Midnight Express?" "Because I really don't want to go to prison," Naruto said, his big puppy dog eyes shivering at the thought of going to prison like in that movie. Maybe he should look into that. He wondered if they paid better than mercenaries. "Who the hell showed him Midnight Express?" Itachi asked, arching an eyebrow. "How old is he? 8? Itachi shook his head and said, "No prison. You're just going to be here to learn a lesson and then we'll let you go. Now, did you learn anything yet?" in place of asking Naruto that question. With a broad smile and a firm nod, Naruto replied, "Yes. I've discovered that, if I feel the need to steal something, I should do it closer to Keishahin because no one follows me there. For some reason, mercenaries are really tough, and they let me in. Perhaps as a result of Kakashi ni, Obito ni, and Rin ni-chan." His stomach then gave a loud growl, causing the boy to flush. "I'll see if I can find you something to snack on. No one here can cook right now, so you'll have to wait for a bit." "Sasuke, stay here for a bit with Naruto-kun," Itachi said, getting up and moving away from the area. The other young boy, Sasuke, watched Itachi walk away before glaring at Naruto, who was still clinging to the bars. For an extended period, the boys did nothing but stare at one another without exchanging words. After a while, the awkward silence was broken by Naruto's deadpan expression. This kid was staring at what the hell was it? Sasuke shot first, saying with an impassive expression, "Dobi," just as Naruto was about to ask him this. Naruto simply slacked his jaw and raised an eyebrow. What name did he just use? Was he simply calling him, dead last? "Fuck you, you mini donut hole stuffing little dickhead," Naruto exclaimed, pressing his face against the bar as if he could squeeze through and get to Sasuke. That was such an inappropriate little piece of behavior. I appreciate Obito ni's vibrant word selection. Pressing his forehead against the bars just like Naruto, Sasuke fired back, "What did you say to me, jailbird? Repeat that for me again." Naruto growled near Sasuke, "You heard me, Super Trooper. If you can't hear, then come in here and I can clear your ears out with my fists." Sasuke grinned and said, "You sure do run your mouth a lot." He then turned to face the cell confidently and said, "If I went in there, I would flush your head right down that toilet." Turning away from the bars, Naruto snapped back, "Whatever, deputy. Now go and get your sheriff, big brother back in here so I can talk to someone smart." And there it was. Sasuke became enraged when the child was compared to Itachi, who was purportedly his brother. It would be enjoyable to play around with that. The two boys exchanged heated looks, and Itachi sensed the tension between them when he returned holding a steaming cup of instant ramen flavored with chicken, saying, "Wow. Is that killing intent?" None of them realized that it would mark the beginning of the most dysfunctional and sincere friendship in history. The general plan of action for how they were going to get to Gado's money storage had been established 2 days prior to the scouting mission of his mansion. With lanterns hung periodically for illumination, Naruto discovered himself crawling through a tunnel about the size of a person. Damn Kakashi ni," he uttered before colliding his head with a support beam. "I know we're on the clock here, but you could have patched this thing up a little better, couldn't you?" The sounds of fast scratching and earth moving filled his ears as he continued to crawl through the tunnel, indicating that he was getting close to his intended destination. He eventually saw dogs of all shapes and sizes digging as quickly as they could to create a tunnel that kept getting deeper. The blue vests with the faces drawn on them all over the backs were what the dogs all shared in common. An elderly man with white hair and a goatee, who wore spectacles and gave commands to Kakashi and the dogs, was assisting in directing how things were done. The man was Kaisa's father-in-law, Tazuna. Putting up another set of support beams in the tunnel, Kakashi said, "Hey Naruto." Having spent the previous 2 days without sleep, he asked jokingly, "How are things up in the world with sunlight?" "Man, you're working the dogs hard, aren't you?" Naruto asked, putting goggles over his face to prevent dirt or other flying objects from getting into his eyes. "Kaisa's got his guys all ready to roll once we set this whole thing off." "Yeah. But they know I'm grateful and I'm going to reward them once they finish digging to where we need the tunnel to be. So how ready are we?" Kakashi said, glancing at his steadily digging dogs working in shifts. With a sigh of relief, Naruto took a seat on the tunnel's dirt floor. He had been hard at work setting up the precise timing of the strategy. "We're ready whenever. We just need to wait for a lull in the patrol. I've got a good time for it." Naruto grinned and continued, "Saturday nights a third of Gado's men are granted a furlough in town. Tons of them go, and that's when most of the stuff that pisses people off about them happens. They're just a bunch of drunken, drugged-up jackasses at that time. The ones left behind are lax, and I heard from a delivery guy that they just hang around the guardhouse most of the time." After learning earlier from Tenten's briefing from contractors that the guardhouse held Gado's alert to the daimyo that would bring down an army's wrath if it were to be set off and that they might not have the bridge to escape from once the place went into lockdown, Kakashi said, "I thought that was bad." No, ecstatically replied Naruto, "It's great, since they can't leave. All they do on weekends is get tore up. Gado doesn't care since no one's getting around or over his security system, and he's right. We can't set foot on his property without it, but Tenten's got a way around that. We need him to turn it off." "Why would he possibly ever turn his security system off?" Kakashi asked with a deadpan expression. "Ask Tenten." Naruto waved him off, "But once we do that we can get in while the distraction goes on outside the gate. Kaisa's men are going to launch an attack that you need to be there for to keep them safe. Also, this needs to look legit, like attacking him is what we really want. He can't know that we're going to rob the shit out of him until we've got everything." From that moment on, the two sat silently while Kakashi simply looked at Naruto. At that moment, the only sound coming from the tunnel was digging. Then Kakashi interrupted, asking, "Just how many people have you robbed that you two can work something like this out? I'm not even in the planning, you're using me for manual labor." As they sat there aimlessly, watching the dogs dig, Naruto asked in a dead serious voice, "Do you want to hear about all of them or just the ones that Itachi knows I did?" XXX. A little later, Kaisa's residence. Tenten sat down, her face focused, and began tapping away on the laptop she had packed to travel with her from home. Kaisa was out assisting the men who volunteered to help with the operation to get dressed appropriately. "Do you really think whatever your plan is will work?" he asked, trying to cut her down. This left her, the gorgeous and submissive housewife Tsunami, and Inari, who was staring at her from a spot on the living room couch. Not that the girl seated across from him was paying any attention. Without taking her eyes off the screen, Tenten responded, "Yep. And Naruto better be coming back with what I need too. It better be good quality ones too." Her fingers drumming quickly on the keyboard was almost hypnotic as she spoke. "If we didn't think we could, we would have called for backup as soon as possible. Getting in is the hardest part, and we're pretty much all over that." "Okay. This better work and you'd better reimburse me," Naruto said, setting the box down on the floor. They were over 36,000 ryo in all. "That's like a fourth of what I'm actually making once we split up the pay, and that's if it's even in the first place." Kakashi's probably going to take the lion's share. With that, the door flew open, and Naruto entered carrying a large cardboard box filled with smaller boxes. Tenten raised a hand from her keyboard to dismiss him, saying, yeah, I hear you, whatever. She then stopped typing and closed the computer, moving on to the cardboard box where she observed an RC car and other RC vehicles that Naruto had bought. I told you not to get the cheap stuff, she reprimanded. Inari stared at the box with disbelief. Toys? Are you kidding me? Why the heck are you buying toys? I knew you guys wouldn't take this seriously. You're going to get dad killed with your know-it-all useless mercenary stuff. Before Naruto, who was completely broke at Tenten, gave Inari a stern look and said, those cost 6,000 each. Without tax. Bite me. He was fortunate to have more money waiting in the wings once he got back home. Shut up, kid. Seriously. It's better than running up to the front gate with a crossbow. They'll die, guess. For what I'm using them for, we'll never see them again, so who really cares? I just hope they don't crap out on us halfway through, she said, reaching into the box and removing an RC helicopter. We're never getting this crap within 50 feet of his place, Naruto said as he picked up a second RC helicopter. You just made me waste my money, Tenten, not cool. Or did you not forget that his place is kept with motion detectors all over? Yeah, I know, but you're going to beat that with your number one ability, being annoying. With the moves that you have, I'm sure you can pull it off. How good is your henge? Turn into something little, like a squirrel. Naruto accomplished this flawlessly with a hand seal or two. Tenten gave him a wry smile. Tenten put him back down after picking him up and giving him a quick examination. Yeah, that's perfect. To Inari's surprise and amazement, Naruto transformed back to normal after exhaling another puff of smoke. What are you people? You're so weird, Inari exclaimed. Tenten approached Inari and gently touched his cheek, saying, we'll take that as a compliment, because if we weren't weird we wouldn't make any real money doing this job. The weird ones are the best at this. She then turned to face Naruto and asked, how's the tunnel coming along? With her hands resting on her hips. Can you break into that vault yet or what? I don't feel like waiting around here an extra week just on you. Naruto said, taking a seat on the couch next to Tenten's laptop. It'll be ready by Saturday night. A couch pillow was then hurled at his head. With a cheerful and self-assured tone, Tenten said, I was just taking care of that. She unplugged her phone's USB connection from her laptop and pocketed it. As long as I have my phone with me, we can get into the vault in under a minute. I have a program that'll automatically crack his code with a phone call, so we're good. Now we just wait until Saturday. Inari was astounded by how casually these two were discussing the entire matter. As though getting Gato to leave their nation would only require one serious action. After a year, he had established himself in the country's infrastructure, and they believed they could remove him. You guys don't care anything about this. Why are you people here? Why are you doing this? Was the deliberate question that these ignorant of the nation would raise as they approached him. Tenten and Naruto exchanged a look before Naruto answered the boy, who appeared to be upset. Because we're getting paid well. That's all the reason we really need. It's our job to fight other people's battles for them, he said, explaining why they were unaware of his distress. Tenten, stretching her arms above her head as she sat down on the same couch as Naruto to return to her laptop, said, we wish we could say it's because of some hero's complex. But we'd never know that, since if it weren't for the mission we wouldn't know this was happening to you all. But what if you die? Inari approached the two and questioned them. In response, Naruto merely shot him a cold stare and said, I got myself beaten half to death for a bottle of water that I didn't even get to drink. I'll die for your country if I have to, kid. He then slapped the boy on the head and covered his eyes with his hat. Tenten grinned and asked, even though we're only going to make a small amount compared to what we'll be stealing. She was aware that Naruto occasionally exhibited a strong financial obsession bordering on greed. He usually ended up spending a lot of money, some of which he spent on her creations, so it was kind of funny. He would have said it was for the love of the job, but part of his job was to kill, and that would have sounded creepy even to Tenten. Naruto gave a firm nod. Yeah, I'll just have to pick up the slack with a bunch of bum jobs later when we get home. It's not like I have to pay rent or anything. I've paid up for an entire year already. It's not about the money really. Looking down, Inari avoided looking at Naruto and Tenten with most of his face. So you're saying that your lives are basically worth money? Then how much will it take to make you all leave? Inari asked. No amount. Tenten scowled and shook her head, unsure of the child's issue with them. They had tasks to complete. We signed a contract. It's not only our word that binds us to the mission, it's the reputation of our entire PMC, all of Keishahin. After a while, Inari stomped out of the room and said, "Fine, go get yourself killed like Dad's going to. I don't care. I'm sorry about him. He's really taken the whole down with Gato movement badly. He doesn't see any reason to fight because we've got this house and we've got the bar. We have the means to make money in this environment. Kaiza sees that no one else does and people are suffering." Tsunami, the boy's mother, watched as the little boy stormed out of the room and passed her through the kitchen and into the living room, where she turned to gaze at the bewildered teenage mercenaries. Tenten gave Naruto a hard hit on the back of the head, making him growl, "Fine, you fix these things up yourself." Naruto replied, "It's okay," adding, "He doesn't have to like me for us to get the job done. I like Kaiza. He's a cool guy, and I'm not just saying that because he's paying us and we're sleeping in your house." Tenten said, indifferently, "That's okay with me, you just break them anyway. Go help Kakashi Taiko finish digging the tunnel. You seem like a dumb muscle, manual labor kind of guy," as he stood up to go. As he moved to open the front door and depart, Naruto muttered to himself. XXX. Konohagakure no Sato, the apartment of Naruto. Sasuke continued, "I really think that my letter of resignation to Itachi on training the interns is eloquent and gets my point across. I understand that it's important for making new recruits, but I cannot allow you to make me your bitch for demonstrations and the like. I have a reputation." Sasuke wasn't concerned with form, just wanting to hit as hard as he could. "Now go ahead and read that back to me. I want to hear how it sounds." When Kyuubi heard Sasuke talking, she was lying on the longest couch in the living room's main entertainment square, clutching a notepad. "Oh, I'm sorry you wanted me to write that down," she said, lifting it to reveal a fairly well-drawn image of a car exploding in flames. "I thought you were just practicing to get the guts to tell him in person. But this is good, right?" she asked, grinning toothily before making an explosion-like sound. "I would set you on fire, but this is Naruto's new place and you'd probably like that. It might remind you of home, I mean. The devil lives in hell, doesn't she?" Sasuke said, giving her a deadpan expression before punching the heavy bag once more inadvertently. Kyuubi crossed her arms and pouted, "That's just mean, Sasuke." She added, "And you're really going to quit your assignment? What about Sakura? She's doing that whole thing for you, just so you know. Just because I'm a half-demon does not mean I'm related in any way to the devil. Even though I am fire elemental by nature, but that's just a family coincidence really." Finally, she haplessly tossed the notepad to the side. After giving the bag a single kick and turning to go raid his best friend's fridge in the kitchen, Sasuke remarked, "I already figured. And she's not doing a bad job all things considered, but trying to get me to like her just because of that. It's just not going to work." At Sasuke's almost silent scoff, a tick mark appeared on her head. "Just date her or Ino one time, and if you hate it then leave it alone. What do you have to lose?" Kyuubi said, sitting up and leaning over the back of the couch to stare at Sasuke. "You've got to just take a step back and lower your expectations for the girls around you. I mean, they all can't be as wonderful as me." Turning from his spot in the kitchen, Sasuke stared down the girl of his best friend until she was almost scared. "Oh, my summer was so great. So what did you do during the summer, Ino?" he said, raising his voice to a high-pitched girl's voice. Then, he flipped and started telling the story from Ino's perspective. "Ah, you'll never believe it. I got a date with Sasuke-kun." He then let out a series of high-pitched babbling squeals, imitating the possible reactions of other girls. "He's finally putting himself on the market. Let's go corner him and hit on him relentlessly, taking his uncomfortably tense silence and stoicism as an endorsement of our actions. That's just great. I think if Kiba were here, he'd try to beat you up. Don't boys like being fawned over by women?" Kyuubi said, pausing briefly before clapping slowly. Sasuke looked back into the refrigerator and took out a bottle of vegetable juice, his defense being, "Naruto says I'm a jaded pretty boy because that's all I've ever known. There's no substance, no real reason to take any of them up on the offer." He continued, "I've been a functional mute in front of all of them for the past 7 years, the picture of a prick, and they don't even call me on it. I don't want to date a robot, damn it." Kyuubi flopped back on her couch and made a random comment, "Hinata-chan has backbone." After walking back to the entertainment area and nodding, Sasuke said, "Yeah, she does. She helped me out big time even when I told her to leave during that fight in the park. She got me shot, but she ended up killing the bastard herself. It was the coolest thing I'd ever seen a girl do, even cooler than when you helped me fight Raiga because she saved me and not the other way around." He then took a sip of his drink. "So you don't think that Hinata-chan is overbearing like the girls at our school?" Kyuubi asked, smirking as Sasuke settled into an armchair and turned on the TV. She let silence reign between them as Sasuke flicked through random channels before abruptly interrupting. Okay. I guess I'll ask her if she'd let you take her out then. Sasuke was only prevented from spitting out his drink by the knowledge that he would either have to clean it later or perish at the hands of Naruto. With his Sharingan on, he gave Kyuubi a fierce look while she turned her head and giggled. I hope you won't threaten her by saying, you tell her that and I'll get you locked up. Kyuubi laughed heartily at Sasuke's response, saying, I don't even do anything illegal. That's Naruto-kun. She was not into playing practical jokes on people, so it was obvious that she would never do anything like that. She would never have said something like, oh don't make a face like that. I won't tell her anything, I promise. But you'd better get some guts if you really do like her. She was not wrong. For the publicity it would bring to his career, he had no problem trying to track down a man known for using human experimentation, but he wouldn't ask a sweet girl like Hinata out. It was sort of ironic. Fine. I'll work on it, just keep quiet until I do. Speaking of significant others, did you call the dobe you call a boyfriend yet about what I talked to you about last night? Sasuke was focusing on the TV when Kyuubi brought up the subject of the previous night's late-night phone call, so she bit her lower lip tensely and said, No, he's still got no signal for me to reach him at. I'll try again later. Sasuke nodded and accepted the response. Good, because I don't really want to get all scare tactics on you, but from what Itachi told me this could be some bad news. I think they're called Akatsuki and I know it's regional, but Itachi said that they're moving further out into other countries. A run-in with those guys seems nasty for someone like him or you. I just want you guys to know one way or the other. With a wish that he would just talk about something different, Kyuubi said, message received. To be honest, she didn't want to discuss them. She hadn't even told her family what Sasuke had told her yet, and she'd seen enough of the Akatsuki group to last her many lifetimes. She kept hoping that they wouldn't go as far into High no Kuni as their city and that it was all just hearsay. She wanted to avoid having to deal with it as long as possible. XXX. Nami no Kuni, Saturday, nightfall, 1 day later. The alarm system on Gado's property went off for what seemed like the 100th time that day, and since dusk it had gone off a record 27 times, but when his forces went to investigate the intrusion, they found nothing. Those goddamn podunk, backwater contractors fucked me over good. I paid them good money to set my system up. Tomorrow morning, first thing I'm calling back to the mainland. Maybe then I can get some actual skilled workers to get everything together. Turn the goddamn system off, was a screaming cry he had long since lost the patience to handle. He still had guards in the barracks and he still had the men searching the land with spotlights. Nobody in the neighborhood was brave enough to attack his house because, in the event that his men failed to execute or subject them to torture for their ridiculous notion, the daimyo would promptly sound the alarm and dispatch his men to assist him. All he needed to do was continue the bribery. Additionally, he had an ample amount of money to spare. XXX. Away from the Gado mansion, over 150 of Kaisa's men were armed for battle as Kakashi sat in hiding outside the perimeter of Gado's mansion. Right now, dozens of tiny nocturnal animals were frequently seen popping into tiny puffs of smoke as they ran back across the open field to the edge of the property. A few armed Nami no Kuni men chuckled at that. It shouldn't be that long now then, he said, pulling out his cell phone and quickly dialing a number. I know you know already, but the first part of the plan worked. Get started on the second phase, we'll move at the signal. Kakashi shook his head in amazement, and spoke softly but loud enough for Kaisa and some of his men to hear him. Good luck Kaka ni, Kakashi Taiko. Ma, don't be reckless now. You two are the ones who will be in the hornet's nest. I've got the easy part, I'll be fine, Kakashi sheepishly said to the two younger fighters on the opposite line. XXX. Subterranean tunnels. From a point outside Gado's property, tunnels beneath the ground had been hollowed out and supports had been erected. Tenten, who was watching an above-ground image of Gado's entire home on her laptop monitor thanks to an RC helicopter with a camera attached, said, We'll be okay Kakashi Taiko. Naruto and Tenten were currently sitting at the end of what Kakashi's hounds had dug beneath the hatch above them that led to the upper world. Tenten ended the call and used her laptop to make the helicopter crash into Gado's dimly lit room. After a few keystrokes, the feed changed to a ground-level view through the grass. After a short while to fine-tune the tiny camera's height, Tenten took off driving the tiny car through the grass, dodging the wall guard's spotlights with ease as it passed them and entered the center of the property. Tenten glared at Naruto as she continued to control the remote control car with her laptop. Don't crash, Naruto abruptly warned, noting that, we're using explosives here and those aren't exactly stable. If you crash it might blow up before you get it there. Tenten said, we have 3. She noticed his point, though, as she concentrated on steering. The RC car reached the front stairs of the guardhouse and bumped into them, making Tenten cringe. If one blew up before they got it to where they needed it to be, then the guards would probably be able to alert the daimyo's forces and the jig would be up for everyone. Just get loose and keep quiet. I know what I'm doing. She did not want the car to blow there. She turned to face Naruto and cut off any response he was about to give by saying, "Shut your mouth or I'll stab it shut." Naruto withdrew and took a seat on the ground some distance away from his partner, raising his hands in a defensive manner. He would be wise to avoid Tenten carrying out her threat to pierce him much more than necessary or desired. But at least she threatened to stab his mouth shut rather than threaten something closer to him, or lower. That women seemed to enjoy calling for violence. When the guardhouse door opened and an inebriated guard staggered out, banging his foot against the RC car, Tenten's expression lit up. He brought the little toy into the building to show it off, as if he thought it was cool. Tenten heard the guard say, "Hey, check this out, some brat lost a pretty expensive-looking toy. It's mine now, hee hee hee." Over the monitor. "Where the fuck's the remote control for this stupid thing?" "Hey, does that look like the thing we're supposed to be taking out?" Tenten asked, tilting her head curiously as the car was brought through a corridor equipped with a control panel. "Okay," Tenten said, punching in a code on the keyboard. Kaboom then. Then, the camera cut out, and the two teenage mercenaries felt the ground tremble and send crumbs of dirt down from the tunnel. Commenting on the explosion, Naruto asked, "Was it supposed to be that strong? I didn't put that much Semtex in the RC car, did I?" Tenten blinked, not sure how much he had put in the cars, then asked the obvious question, "Okay, so how much did you put in the cars?" "Enough to line the entire inside of the chassis." "Yes, Naruto, that was too much, way too much. I use 1/7 of what you used when I use Semtex in fights." "You owe me explosives," Tenten said, palming her face and quickly switching the laptop's feed back to the helicopter that had been on Gado's roof. She then guided the helicopter into one of the spotlights and punched in the code as the camera feed cut off and another explosion rocked the ground. XXX. In partnership with Kakashi, all of the outside force stared at the main spotlight, stunned and astonished by the blast's size and volume. "Wow. Do you think you put enough of a charge into that one, kids?" Kakashi asked himself, rolling his only visible eye in a sardonic manner. "Alright boys. This is what we've been waiting for," Kaiza exclaimed, drawing an enthusiastic cheer from each of them. "We've got real-life mercenaries here, and this is the night Gado learns that he can't just take our livelihood away from us. He can't make us into a country of beggars without a fight." The men raised their clubs, spears, swords, crossbows, and other weapons they had prepared for battle, and then they all shouted, "Now charge." The sudden onslaught of over 150 men came hurtling toward Gado's mansion, startling the few men manning the walls who had already been made aware of the recent random explosion. As they yelled an alert to the other guards around the premises, those brandishing crossbows shot them down off the walls, and the fight began. Gado's lawns turned into a battleground as common people who had been pushed too far for a whole year tried to vent their resentment and complaints against his armed goons. These people were infuriated that these small businessmen and fishermen, whom they viewed as foolish fools, believed they could truly harm men who looked like them. They would get into a fight if that was their desire. Anyhow, that's what criminals like them were most proficient at. That was the reason behind their high salary. Unfortunately for the naive fools, fighting wasn't their true purpose for being there. XXX. With Tenten and Naruto, Tenten's brown eyes were peering around cautiously from a spot on Gado's back lawn near the guardhouse where smoke and fire billowed out and men were running out to escape the flames, possibly to join the battle in progress. "Okay. Boost me all the way up and let's get this over with," she whispered back down to Naruto, who carefully lifted her higher, letting her crawl out of the tunnel and pull him up before they were spotted. Even though his blood was aching for him to enter the chaos that was happening everywhere, Tenten and Naruto actually had work to do. They both avoided being seen by Gado's soldiers and entered the mansion by simply kicking the door. They didn't even need to try being stealthy. When Tenten entered, he immediately struck one of Gado's men who was coming down the stairs from upstairs in the chest with a swift kunai, causing him to slump to the ground and tumble down the stairs. Tenten had learned the layout of the house before the attack, so he and Naruto continued running through it while he ruled over the swift kill, saying things like, "His stupid vault is in the basement." As they ran through the kitchen, several of Gado's men who were trying to break through the house to get to the actual battle outside saw them and complained, "Why can't it be upstairs?" Tenten hastily rummaged through adjacent drawers for silverware to use as makeshift weapons while Naruto leapt over a counter and kicked two of them in the face. Tenten eventually located a pair of large butcher knives and threw them across the room, hitting one man in the chest as he backed against the refrigerator and fell to the ground, and another man in the bicep as he turned to avoid a fatal blow, while Naruto used his Yuki-generated claws to take down two of the thugs. Naruto's swiftly formed Rasengan, which slammed him into a nearby wall hard enough to crack it, didn't spare him. "Hey! I found the way to the basement," Tenten said as he sent the last of the thugs flying down a flight of stairs. Tenten kicked the door with enough force to break it. Naruto nodded to himself before saying, "You do that. I'm going upstairs and outside to raise hell to make sure nobody goes down there to mess with you." However, before he could turn around and go, Tenten had his ear and was dragging him down the stairs. "Ow! Oh come on Tenten, that sounds like a good idea," Naruto said. As they continued to drag him through the basement corridor at the foot of the stairs, Tenten said dryly, "Not really. Even if you left a clone or two to watch my back, how much use would they really be? All you'd try to do would be to find Gato anyway. That's not the mission." Eventually, they came upon a massive shut vault door. "That's the mission." "Fine. Just hurry up and crack it so we can get the hell out of here," Naruto said irritably with a slight growl in his voice as Tenten quickly whipped the bag off her back to pull out her laptop and get it set up to the vault. Naruto plopped down on the floor facing down the corridor to keep an eye out for anyone that would come down and try to disrupt Tenten's work on opening the door. Tenten, as she finished connecting her laptop to the vault's system, said in a casual way, "Wow, someone needs to get laid to take the edge off." It was now just a matter of time until her computer matched the vault's code and completed the hack. With his arms crossed and his fingertips drumming his biceps, Naruto uttered, "No shit. It's been a week." He might be calmed down by a fight, but that was probably just going to be a band-aid solution. Man, he really wanted to be outside. Why was Kakashi not able to be the one on the inside team? XXX. Previous scenes. Gato's mansion, upstairs. Gato gazed out his window at the fierce battle taking place below, a small knife trembling in his hand. It was simply too personal for him to feel at ease with. It was pretty clear that the knife was useless. That cowardly rat would have no chance of escaping the encounter if the time ever came for him to really use it. "I forked over an arm and a leg for that specialist from Mizu no Kuni. He was supposed to be the best." Gato yelled at his katana-wielding guards who were huddled up against him. "What am I paying you for, damn it? Keep your panties on you, Toad. You've got to let the bloodshed percolate for a bit. No use in stepping into a battle from the beginning. I'd end it in a heartbeat. Enjoy the carnage, I do." Gato and his guards felt a chill run down their spines as the dangerous-sounding voice said, "Why, you're going to fight back, right? You're going to protect me? That's your job?" A tall, broad man with visible bandages on his back and a handle with a skull tip protruding from it said, "Whatever," as he left Gato's room. "Just make sure that check of yours doesn't bounce." He slammed the door shut, and his footsteps echoed down the hall. Why the hell are mercenaries from that place so messed up in the head? Wondered Gato and his guards as they stood in silence for a while until the footsteps eventually stopped. Wiping the anxious perspiration from his brow, Gato remarked, "He can be as screwed up as he wants to be. That man is a monster. Those swordsmen are absolute animals. That's why I hired him as the ultimate muscle." XXX. At the mansion's exterior with Kakashi. Kakashi found it relatively easy to maintain his composure during the conflict between the two factions. He was defeating Gato's thugs, who were foolish enough to attack him, even without a weapon, in 1 to 4 hits per person. "How are your men doing?" he asked the fisherman, turning to face Kaiza, who was fending for himself rather nicely with his spear. Kaiza remarked, deflecting a club blow from one of Gato's men with the spear's pole. "The bastards killed 5 of us so far, but we got the drop on them." After slamming the club out of the thug's hands and finishing by stabbing him in the body, Kaiza said, "That was 5 for me. We're running right through them." "You're only on 5? Kakashi asked, scurrying past Kaiza and grabbing the wrists of 2 men brandishing cleavers. "These 2 will make, I'd say 26 and 27 for me." It seemed that his comment had offended the 2 men he had managed to stop. "Who do you think you are, you?" A belligerent thug blurted out before Kakashi could finish his sentence by planting both of them face first in the ground and stomping them both again. "Yeah, well, I'm not a trained super soldier like yourself, I'm just a guy that catches fish. I think even your kids that you keep with you could outfight me," complained Kaiza angrily at Kakashi's display of superiority in combat. After fighting for almost 10 full minutes without a break, Kaiza took a moment to gather himself. "Yes, being trained from the time I could walk kind of did that for me. But get your men to band together. You have ranged fighters, correct?" Kaiza nodded, pointing to those with crossbows. Have your melee fighters set up in front of them and provide them protection while they provide a bit of support. The shift of casualties should be massive. Kakashi grinned as he threw 2 kunai at 2 thugs fighting other Nami no Kuni liberators, hitting them in the back and knocking them down. Kaiza nodded and turned to run across the battlefield to tell others when his men let out a cry of alarm that broke through everything else. It's a monster. What is this thing? We can't even touch it. Putting a hand on Kaiza's shoulder and narrowing his eyes at the new threat, Kakashi said, never mind. Actually, I want you to stay as far away from there as you can. If you can, get your men back over towards the guardhouse side of the premises and shore up. Why? Kaiza questioned, turning to face Kakashi. As he did, his eyes widened to see a white, bandaged object that resembled a shark's dorsal fin sticking out of the ground and rolling through the ground like water, slicing through anything that got in the way of the subterranean object's path. Okay. Are you sure you can handle that thing? Kaiza asked. It was now time to face the juggernaut that was slicing through anyone who stood in his way, whether they were on Gato's side or not. Let's do this. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Kakashi laughed and asked, causing Kaiza to start backing away towards the previously indicated location. Damn, I was really hoping he was the hero type that was somewhat suicidal, but I would have failed the mission, so I guess it balances out. A pair of additional Kakashis materialized at the side of the first one, leaping towards the bandaged fin-like object and attempting to form a triangle around it in an attempt to attack. But as soon as they did, the ground erupted, revealing a tall, muscular figure who slashed through Kakashi's clones with a bandaged sword. The original was then forced to flee the battle, or else his chakra constructs would suffer the same horrible fate. The man that rose up from the earth to attack Kakashi had small, round eyes, gill-like markings on his cheeks, pale blue skin, and a shark-like smile that revealed sharp teeth. He was dressed in dark pants, gray arm and leg warmers, a black sleeveless shirt, bandages on the upper portions of his arms, and short boots. The sword in his hand was covered in scales and appeared to be bandaged. He said, "Well, you actually dodged my first move. It looks like you're the only person here that's trained worth a damn." With a defensive kunai draw, Kakashi asked in his usual tone, "Me? No, I'm just a simple fisherman like the rest of these guys. And you're one big fish, my friend. You're Kakashi Hitaki. What's a famous guy like you doing in a place like this?" The strange, blue man asked, seeming ecstatic to have found someone who could fight out of the dregs of the Nami no Kuni liberators who were nothing more than farmers and sailors. He laughed to himself for a little while before pointing his weapon at Kakashi and adding, "Samahata is really excited to get a taste of your chakra." Samahata, Kakashi said, as though the word or name should be well known. And indeed, it was, as it was intended to be a very significant sword similar to another significant sword that a person he knew well by chance happened to wield. "Your name is Kisame Hoshigaki, isn't it? I know someone that you might remember pretty well, he's a comrade of mine," Kakashi said. Kisame responded with a chuckle. "That must be either Zabu-chan or that failure Raiga. Those are the only two that trained with us that ran over to your neck of the woods, so to speak, and I heard that Raiga got offed already. Is he still a bleeding heart for that girl with the ice-making Keke Genke? He ran away like a coward and took her with him when the boss ordered him to hand her over for the purges." Zabu-chan considered Kakashi in his head. "Yeah, if you're talking about Haku as well, then it's definitely him, and he told me to show no mercy if I ever ran into anyone else using a special sword like his," Kakashi said, revealing his single Sharingan eye and preparing for battle. He was going to use that one later once he got home. As Kisame rushed Kakashi with blinding speed, the bandages on Samahata separating to reveal its full intimidating form, he remarked, "Good advice, but he should have given you some better counsel. He should have told you to just run away," Kisame exclaimed. Because of the gift from Obito's eye and his own hard-earned speed, Kakashi was able to see ahead of time and avoid the attack that would have killed him. He said, "Sorry, but I can't retreat here while everyone else is fighting so hard." Additionally, even though it was the recommended course of action, he wouldn't just run away while Naruto and Tenten were inside Gato's house, cut off from knowing what was happening outside. Sweden. Bakusu Shuha, water release, exploding water colliding wave. Kisame growled in acknowledgement. "I assumed as much." Keisha-hine is rather notorious for their hero complexes among operatives. He then made the snake seal as his cheeks puffed out to the brink of explosion. An incredible amount of water shot from Kisami's mouth, enough to fly at Kakashi in the form of a massive tidal wave. The wave that Kisame rode atop of Samahata, using the formidable weapon like a surfboard as water seemed to pour out of his mouth non-stop, carried dozens of men from both sides of the battle into the torrent of water that came from him. The mansion's windows broke and water poured in, warping the battlefield due to the sheer volume of water. The whole place was flooded to the point where Kisame was standing in knee-deep water, giggling to himself over the destruction his single action had caused. Suigaden, water release. Waterfang bullet was a sneak attack that was intended to catch Kisame off guard. 4 water drills formed around him and suddenly converged on him, spraying water everywhere as they crashed together. As Kisame's body turned to water and fell into the knee-high water, water shot out of his severe wounds, replacing the blood that had been drilled out. He avoided my attack by substituting with a water clone. What a quick counter from someone who hadn't struck Kakashi as being very defense-oriented. Kakashi had been standing on the defensive wall of Gado's compound when he had attacked Kisame and was forced to jump off when a slash from Samahada would have gotten him. Kisame concluded with a maniacal grin. "You are going to be very fun for me to fight. Samahada is just itching to get a taste of your chakra," he said, tapping Samahada on his own shoulder. XXX. Inside Gado's mansion, with Naruto and Tenten. Tenten yelled, come on, let's get this stuff out and go," to the roughly dozen Naruto Cage Bunshin who were frantically circling the safe while carrying countless bags stuffed with cash and even some gold bullion. To help clear out the vault, she even had multiple heavy bags strapped to her back and front. "Let's get the hell out of here," the original Naruto exclaimed, gathering support from his clones who formed a single file to trot out of the mansion. "We're ready to roll already," he exclaimed, leading Tenten and his clones through the kitchen and up the stairs, ignoring the soaked floors that appeared to have been caused by a flash flood, and eventually stopping. More than just the body of the man Tenten killed there was now inside the stairs leading upstairs near the entrance where they used to enter the building. A young man of their age, with white shoulder-length hair, purple eyes, gray trousers, and no shirt to reveal a lean-looking build, was sitting on the steps, surveying Tenten's work. "You guys really didn't mess around when you stormed on in here, did you? Kind of boring though. Kisame's senpai told me to stay upstairs to watch Gado while he took control of the situation outside." "Boring," he said, wearing gray arm warmers on his forearms and a katana at his waist. "Who is this guy?" Tenten asked herself as her hands slid toward her arsenal of weapons. She could feel the bloodlust erupting from the stranger, who didn't seem all that friendly. "He stated he should be watching over Gado," Naruto uttered, keeping his gaze fixed on the odd boy as he grinned broadly and flashed his razor-sharp fangs. The white-haired guard stood up on the stairs and asked, "So Whiskers, can you and Buns over there fight?" while glancing down at Tenten and Naruto. Though Naruto had been called Whiskers for years and was therefore accustomed to the term, Tenten's eye twitched at the mention of her trademark hairdo, asking, "What did you just call me? I don't think I heard that correctly." The teenage sword wielder pointed at Tenten and Naruto and remarked, "Someone's got a little bite to her. Feisty. Okay, so which one of you am I going to have to dice up first? I don't really have any preferences here. I'd even settle for taking you both on at once." Reaching beneath his right leg's pant leg, Naruto said, "Tenten, go out the back and find a way out of here. We can't afford to get bogged down here in a fight where the money is going to get destroyed." Tenten said, "You're going to fight him?" with a look of shock. Should she depart, he would ensure his clones remained intact and assisted her in moving the money until she managed to escape the danger area. Right now, his chakra was divided into 13 directions. Was he even able to maintain that kind of pace in a one-on-one battle? That was not good. Naruto exclaimed, "Yeah, one of us has to, right? Now get going," as he watched the boy broaden his smile and charge at him. Naruto withdrew his bowie knife to fight the swordsman. "You don't bring a knife to a sword fight, friend. It just doesn't end very well at all," said Naruto, as he smiled and attempted a thrusting stab with his sword. Naruto jumped back and swatted the tip of the blade away with his knife. Rather than replying orally, Naruto tried a knife swing but was unable to get close because of his opponent's katana's range. As a result, he had to worry about the enemy's longer melee weapon coming back to haunt him, almost severing his stomach from his torso. Naruto leapt a few feet away from his opponent and breathed in deeply. He made a few hand seals and puffed out his cheeks. Tepodama no Jutsu, Water Bullet Jutsu. Naruto shot the water ball from his mouth at the boy, who, to his amazement, did not move but instead grinned as it hit him. What? The water trickled off of his body and then appeared to dry up as if he hadn't been touched at all. "Thanks for that. I appreciate it. I was kind of getting dehydrated just sitting on those stairs." Without saying anything more, he charged Tenten to prevent her and the clones from leaving the mansion via the back entrance, as he was obstructing the original path. With a display of speed, Naruto materialized in front of him and slashed at the mystery fighter with his Bowie knife, causing it to glow red as he did so. Fungeki Kirisukeru, Fury Slash. The blade yelled as a red blade of energy struck the attacking swordsman, severing him in half and turning his body to water. As Tenten made it out of the room and into another area of the house, Naruto stared at the puddle that the boy had left behind on the floor, asking himself, did he use a water clone? I didn't see any hand seals. A grin with shark-like teeth emerged. My kind of move. Nice to meet you, my name's Suigetsu Hazuka. The water then started to reform the strange enemy's body back to its original state, leaving him without any visible injuries from Naruto's previous attack. That was fast, ruthless, and would have killed a normal guy if he'd been hit with it. To start with introductions, Naruto said, Naruto Uzumaki, what did you just do? He asked. Suigetsu merely said, my special technique. Without providing any further information, he continued, maybe you'll find out more about it before I kill you. Or not. I don't really care. Really? Then could you just let me and Tenten leave if you don't care? Naruto asked, blinking as he stood up from his ready position after hearing the now-named Suigetsu speak so casually about trying to stop him. Oh, I mean I don't care if you understand my jutsu before I kill you. I care about you and the girl getting away, of course. This is my mission. So sorry, but I'm going to have to kill you now or I'll never get a spot like my brother as Acacia Arumi Elite, Suigetsu said, staring at him strangely before realizing why Naruto had said it. If nothing else, Naruto could understand that because he too aspired to be regarded as an elite member of his own PMC. Nevertheless, he wasn't going to be anyone's stepping stone for anything, rather, the people he faced were meant to be his stepping stones. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto made a dozen clones, all of whom attacked Suigetsu with knives, only to be repeatedly thwarted by his deft swordplay. Thinking, I can't beat him in close, not with that sword of his, he's too good for me to get him with a knife, he prepared a ranged attack, Kitsune Bai, Foxfire. Suigetsu was struck by the fireball that was thrown at him precisely when the young man with white hair eliminated the final of Naruto's clones. Suigetsu scoffed at Naruto, not taking well to his attack. You're a tricky asshole, aren't you? Suigetsu said, as steam instead of smoke shot out of his body and he fell to the ground with a hiss. It burned him and hurt him even though there were no visible burns on his body or clothing. But you're still just weak and you can't beat me. Weak, huh? Indeed, he had felt helpless during his previous mission, but Suigetsu was by no means Kakuzu, and there was hope in the situation. Although Suigetsu was powerful, Naruto didn't consider himself to be weak. Naruto said, I'll show you just how weak I am. He stowed his knife away, appearing to be tapping into his Yuki as his eyes slitted, his canines seemed to lengthen, and his fingernails turned into claws. Suigetsu, anticipating the fight, licked his lips and chose to make fun of Naruto's unusual appearance. Ooh, how scary, you going to scratch me with those press-on nails, sister? Suigetsu asked. Rather than growling or answering, Naruto just picked up a large oaken table that was 3 times longer than he was and threw it at Suigetsu, seemingly not even trying to lift it. Suigetsu would have tried cutting through it if he had a better sword, but all he had was a regular katana, which, although trustworthy, wasn't as powerful as something like Samahada or Kabikarabachu. As a result, he sidestepped the table and allowed it to strike a wall behind him hard enough to pierce it deeply. It seemed that his target lacked physical strength. Not in the speed department, either, as Suigetsu glanced away from Naruto long enough to see what happened to the table that had been thrown at him. However, when he turned back to face Naruto, the blonde was already in front of him, ready to swing without hesitation. Suigetsu's whole body turned to water as the lethal appendages tore into him, but then he returned to normal and swung his katana in retaliation. As Naruto started to back away to avoid it, Suigetsu started to press the matter, pursuing him relentlessly and striking him with his sword while Naruto started to retreat throughout the mansion's ground floor. A pattern of steady retreat set in as Suigetsu's swings and misses tore apart Gato's very nice-looking home, something that Naruto probably would have taken some satisfaction from if he hadn't been dodging the lethal steel. And he remained unable to get close to Suigetsu, now more than ever because he was pressing his attack. Suigetsu exclaimed, "Man, if I had one of the 7 swords, you'd be so dead right now," as he and Naruto demolished Gato's living room. They exchanged blows with slashes and sword strokes, missing more often than not, and the furniture in the inundated room suffers as a result of the full-on brawl. I really hate whatever this jutsu is, Naruto thought to himself as he tried to figure out where Suigetsu had gone. But you don't, so shut up and fight, he replied, slicing through Suigetsu's arm and turning it to water once more before Suigetsu's entire body turned into the liquid and fell into the mansion's watery floor. The sword, however, appeared to be floating on top of the water and made its way to Naruto's back, where Suigetsu abruptly reformed and stabbed downward with the katana. The young mercenary turned around and saw the pointed steel headed directly towards him, and his blue eyes widened. XXX. Kakashi outside the mansion versus Kisame. That day, Kakashi was cursing his awful luck for the zillionth time. Although Kisame was undoubtedly more powerful than Zabuza, Kakashi was unable to determine this because he had never engaged Zabuza in full combat. The issue was that every ranged chakra-based attack that Kakashi launched seemed to be absorbed by Samahata. It was exasperating. It was the worst idea anyone could have to get close to Kakashi with that monstrous sword, and Kisami's strategy seemed to be to get as close as possible. He just could not bear to have his pound of flesh with the Keishahin nobility left uncut. Suiten. Sukoden no Jutsu, Water Release, Water Shark Bullet Jutsu. The water that had gathered around their knees took the shape of a rather large shark, which was launched toward Kakashi with its mouth gaping, determined to hit him and possibly hurt him more. In response, Kakashi raised a thick wall of water in the shape of a circle around himself to thwart Kisami's water shark, and it succeeded in doing so. Suiten. Suijinheki, Water Release. Water Encampment Wall. When the two forces collided, something other than the shark managed to get past one Kakashi Hitaki's defenses. "You think I can't get past this to get to you?" Kisame yelled as he took the Samahata out of the shark's mouth, swung it, and sliced right through Kakashi's water wall, which seemed to be made of cobwebs. He even succeeded in severing the man inside. He grinned as he watched the enormous piece disappear in a cloud of smoke from Kakashi's right side of the body. TCH. Another cage bunshin? He thought to himself. If he wasn't in the water when he created his water wall, then where was the real one? Kisame noticed at that point that there was no sign of life anywhere in the area. None of the Nami no Kuni liberators nor Gato's men were around the way they had been at the beginning of the battle. It had been just the two of them before, but now it was just him, standing in the water by himself with his menacing sword in hand. That is, until he became aware of the sound of sparks coming from a spotlight platform nearby. XXX. Gato's mansion's jetty. I hired those lunatics to keep me and my property safe. They're tearing it apart worse than those stupid hicks ever could have, exclaimed Gato as he and his small group of personal guards, roughly a dozen in total, ran away in the direction of one of his many seafaring vessels in an attempt to make an aquatic escape. He felt that if he had stayed in that mansion, he would have been no more safe than when he was outside. As they hurriedly boarded one of Gato's yachts, one of the thugs brandishing a sword asked, "How much did you pay for them?" A loud surge and snap of electricity could be heard coming from the front of the property as they turned to face the mansion grounds. Momentarily, ripples of electricity could be seen in the water leaking out of the grounds, and something inside the house had blown out several windows. When the yacht started to drift away from the walkway, Gato yelled, "More than enough for them to work more subtly than this." He could see that one of his smaller boats had disappeared. "Where the fuck is my speedboat from Umi no Kuni?" Another of Gato's guards pointed away from the land where the boat was sailing away. "Motherfucker." XXX. In conjunction with Tenten, in order to return as much of their creator's chakra as possible for use in his own battle, Naruto's clones abandoned the spoils on the small boat and dispelled. Tenten then successfully hotwired the boat and departed in an attempt to steal Gato's money. As Tenten navigated the boat, she thought to herself, "I wonder, if I take a few gold bars will anyone notice?" She intended to escape to a safe location to unload the cargo after the mission was complete. "I think I've earned a little something extra for a job well done." XXX. Catch that stupid little bitch and get my money back or none of you are getting paid, Gato yelled repeatedly, tossing away the binoculars he had been using to see Tenten on his boat and stomping on the deck like a little child. The thugs who were now working double time as his yacht's crew were working double time to do exactly as Gato instructed in catching Tenten. The thugs thought they were someone else. "You're betters. As am I, but who I am isn't important." When Gato turned around, he saw a pale young man leaning against the vessel's railing and staring at him calmly while wearing short black hair and dark combat gear. He carried a sheathed tanto on his back, but there was no sign of him reaching for it. Unlike the strange people who had traveled from Konohagakure to fight him, he did not resemble a farmer or fisherman in the same way that the other Nami no Kuni denizens did. "My betters," Gato exclaimed, chuckling a little, "do you know how much money I have? No one can be your better if you can buy them. If you can't buy someone's loyalty then you merely buy their lives just like I did to this country. And you have your own price, right? How about I give you 20,000 Ryo to get off my boat right now? I'll even give you 100,000 if you stop that girl that has my boat. The pale boy's bluster increased due to the absence of a weapon in his hands as his armed guards moved slowly ahead of Gato toward the unidentified child. The boy did not show any emotion as he moved away from the railing, leaving Gato and his companions on guard even though he did not make any other movement. He said, "You think I require your money? You're mistaken. There is no need for money when you're en route. There is only the mission, and my mission is to keep Naruto Uzumaki alive to continue to be observed." Before a series of loud growls emanated from the interior of the yacht, one of Gato's bodyguards offered, "So then go inside and help him fight that mercenary from Keisha Erumi." The 5 ink lions that were slowly emerging from the ship's interior and glaring down at them all as they turned around were seen by everyone. The young soldier from Root said, "No, I don't think I'll do that." Gato's men started to slowly back away from the ink lions. "It would be much easier just to void their contract with you by way of your death." "I'm so sorry." He didn't sound sorry at all as he said that. After hearing the emotionless teen clearly, one of Gato's thugs overcame his fear of the lions and swung his ball and chain at Sai, smashing it through his head. The man's face lit up with a satisfied smile before the shattered body turned to ink and slid slowly to the floor. The green light flickering on the ink construct turned an angry beeping red as the run of ink moved past its torso, revealing to them all a rather nasty-looking bomb. XXX. Suigetsu vs. Naruto. Within Gato's mansion. To prevent the tip of Suigetsu's katana from piercing his chest, throat, or face, Naruto grasped the weapon between the palms of both hands. Suigetsu was shocked that his only injuries from the blatant act were minor cuts on his hands, saying, "There's no way you should have stopped that. Not only should your hands be cold cuts, I still should have run you clean through." Blood flowed from the cuts he had sustained. Kitsune Haifu no Koka, fox skin hardening. My clones dispelled and freed up enough chakra for me to get most of my strength and chakra back. Ready for round 2? The man grinned as the two continued their battle for supremacy. Suigetsu also smiled, matching Naruto's in a cheeky display of confidence, even though it didn't seem like he was winning the battle. "You were barely surviving round 1, Whiskers. So either you've got something up your sleeve or over the last minute or so your balls dropped something fierce," he said, his smile meeting Naruto's. The two parted ways at another standoff before Suigetsu's smile turned to a sly smirk and his body reverted to water, plunging back into the already copious amounts of the liquid in the flooded room. This time, Naruto's sword just sank to the floor, indicating that he wasn't attempting to move the weapon around the room once more. He growled to himself at having to guess where Suigetsu was. After making a sudden reappearance at Naruto's back, Suigetsu was sent back into hiding after taking a back kick to the chest, turning him back into water. But soon after, Suigetsu suddenly materialized at Naruto's side in a blind spot, ready to strike with an incredibly powerful right arm bent back. He exclaimed, "Suiten. Gaosuiwan no Jutsu, Water Release, Great Water Arm Jutsu." Though Naruto managed to raise his arms in defense and deflect most of Suigetsu's blow, his forearms suffered the brunt of the force as his body crashed through Gato's enormous TV set and landed face first in the water. Naruto immediately rose again, glaring angrily at Suigetsu. But when Naruto heard the glass from the broken TV fall into the water, the glare went away. From then on, Naruto's only actions were to dive onto the pricey coffee table and slam the TV face down onto the water's surface to escape what was about to happen. Suigetsu's body locked up as the damaged TV's voltage tore through it. "You CH cheating BB bastard," he cried, his body aching as he submerged himself back into the water. Rather than allowing Suigetsu to devise a different strategy to take him by surprise, Naruto extended his right hand and instantaneously created the spinning blue ball he had recently acquired from Jiraiya. With a fixed smile, he submerged the jutsu in the water and observed as everything swirled, forming a small whirlpool around his right arm. As he spun around the room, banging into walls and furniture, Suigetsu yelled, "Dude, stop!" with his head visible in the water. "I'm getting dizzy," he yelled again, pleading with Naruto to stop. "Oh, I'm so going to kick the shit out of you when I get out of this." Suigetsu and a good amount of water filtered out of the room into the kitchen at that precise moment, making Naruto curse at the loss of his advantage. Leaping into the water, he dashed into the kitchen, only to see Suigetsu reshaping and pointing a finger gun gesture at Naruto while a drop of water formed at the tip of his index finger. Naruto launched himself at Suigetsu with the Rasengan again, thinking he wouldn't want to see what that move did. However, he drove him back hard, causing Suigetsu's body to turn to water as his jutsu struck the wall and smashed straight through it, sending them out towards the back of Gato's house near the jetty with a view of the ocean. Breathing heavily due to the increasing intensity of their battle, Naruto and the Suigetsu, who had undergone a transformation, stood gazing at each other. Suigetsu and Naruto both had water dripping off of them, but for different reasons. Suigetsu was struggling to maintain his solid form due to the amount of chakra he had used to transform into water and reform his body in order to fight, while Naruto had been getting soaked while fighting inside flooded rooms. Whack! The two fighters shifted their focus to the ocean, where Gado's yacht exploded, scattering wreckage and human parts everywhere. That was kind of sweet, Suigetsu thought to himself, whistling. Damn, I didn't think she had it in her. Did your pretty partner do that? Naruto said, perplexed by what had just transpired. I don't know. Was Gado aboard that vessel? Suigetsu nodded and scratched the back of his head as the flaming pieces of wreckage floated atop the water. But anyone on that boat isn't swimming away from that one, Tenten said, explaining that she wouldn't have turned around to fight if she had a chance to escape with their haul. That's when Kakashi and Kisame appeared on the jetty, still fighting each other tooth and nail. Kisami's clothes had holes in them and appeared to be smoking from some sort of damage. Even so, he remained out of reach and was determined to hurt Kakashi with Samahata. Why are you still standing and moving around after that? I electrocuted you, Kakashi muttered, repeatedly leaping back out of Kisami's striking range. Ha! Kisame replied, continuing to swing at Kakashi. I'll admit, that little trick of yours was nice with the electric hand shocking the daylights out of me, but you've got to work harder than that, I'm afraid, if you want to kill me. To attract the attention of their superior mercenary, Suigetsu and Naruto respectively yelled, Kakashi ni, Kisame senpai. What? The two of them exclaimed, pausing as they saw the two boys gesture toward the ocean, pointing out the devastation that had been caused there. Where's Gado? Kisame asked Suigetsu, stepping back from full-on combat mode when she saw the crown yacht scattered all over the place. All over the place, I'd imagine. Suigetsu replied dryly, no one swam away from that, not that we've seen. So now what? Kisame glared at Suigetsu. How did you let him die? As he continued to stare at the fire on the water's surface. Afterward, he sighed and placed Samahata on his back, seemingly making it stick there without a holster, sheath, or anything else. Suigetsu walked over to Kisame and asked, me? With a shocked expression, pointing at himself. It's not my fucking fault. I was fighting the threat. Gado apparently had a stroke of genius, and left the house. It wasn't my fault. Kisame angrily looked at Suigetsu and said, Mangetsu wouldn't have fucked up. He simply ignored the younger swordsman and turned to Kakashi, who was, well, it looks like we don't need to fight anymore, Kakashi. Lucky for you, because I was just about to get serious. We were right by my playing field. Tell Zabu-chan I said hey, and let him know that he should watch his neck. Him and that cute little bloodline using girl he keeps with him. After turning to face Kakashi, who had also approached to stand beside him, Naruto simply blinked and said, wait, we're done? It's all over? That kind of sucks. I didn't think Tenten had anything with her to cause an explosion that could take that yacht down in one blast, Kakashi said, placing a hand on his shoulder as he concealed his Sharingan from view. They were fighting us because of their contract with Gado. While we didn't set out to kill him, now that he's dead they don't have any need to stick around. Naruto said, turning back to face Suigetsu as the white-haired youth turned to point with his finger gun gesture. She didn't. Upon witnessing Naruto get ready to move or battle once more if required, Suigetsu smirked and said, if we run into each other again, Uzumaki, I'm cutting something of yours off. Arm, leg, it doesn't matter, because next time we meet I'll have one of the 7 swords to use for myself. Count on it. Before heading out to pursue Kisame. Oh, how nice. You made a new friend. Kakashi eyes smiled at Naruto, who was just staring at Suigetsu's back. This received a glare from Naruto, which he completely ignored. Let's go tell Kaiza the good news that we got away with Gado's loot so we can go home, Kakashi said. Yes, without a doubt. Naruto replied, gazing out to sea and the smashed yacht. Tenten did not do that. He would question her afterwards, but he already knew she hadn't done anything. I just know she didn't. Nobody on the liberation team of Nami no Kuni could have accomplished that. That raised the question of who exactly had destroyed Gado and why. When the sun started to rise over the horizon this night, he didn't feel like he had won a big victory for some reason. Omake. Second Origin's initial internship. November 15, 2002, a few years before the storyline begins. Ages of Kakashi Hitaki, 18. And Haku Momochi, 7. And Naruto Uzumaki, 6. As they made their way through the alley that would lead to Kei Shahin's main entrance for operatives, what others who didn't belong would call the back entrance, A younger Kakashi asked the little Naruto who was bouncing animatedly around his heels. Are you excited, Naruto? You've never been inside the base before, have you? The younger Kakashi asked. Naruto looked up at his caregiver, his bright blue eyes beaming. No, I'm excited, Kaka-ni. Wearing a pair of blue jeans and a small black winter coat, he exclaimed. You, Rin-ni-chan, and Obito-ni never took me here before, how come? He was still technically too young, but Rin was the only person who really opposed taking him to base, and she was away on a mission with Obito. But you're a big boy now, so I think you're ready to see a little bit of what your big siblings do for a living. Are you ready? Kakashi asked as he scanned his ID to open the door. Reaching down, he fluffed the blonde boy's hair and said, because you were too little. As soon as the door's locks clicked open to let Kakashi inside, Naruto joyfully jumped up and down. Yeah. This is going to be so cool. Can I play with the weapons? Can I go spar with you in the gym? Gasp, can I get a mission? Huh? Can I? This is where most of the day-to-day things happen. Some operatives get a desk or a cubicle after you work here for a while. The more established mercenaries like me, Rin, and Obito get an office though. But we share. Kakashi rolled his eyes as he walked inside, Naruto running circles around his legs as he chattered rapidly about all of the stuff he wanted to do and see. I should have waited until after the tour to get him some breakfast, he thought to himself as they walked through the entrance corridor. The young child appeared to be amazed by how large the area appeared to be. Some were just relaxing and chatting about various topics, while others were bustling about as if it were a colony of bees. They all exuded strength and confidence, exactly qualities he aspired to. They appeared to be going to work and having fun. No matter what it took, he was going to become a member of this establishment eventually. When Naruto saw Kakashi grab hold of his hand to keep him from getting lost or wandering off inquisitively, he said, "Can we go see your office first, Kaka-ni? Then you can teach me how to fight, right?" Leading Naruto upstairs to another level of the office area, Kakashi said, "Maybe after the tour we can go down to the gym and we can mess around with some hand-to-hand if you really want to." Naruto followed him to his office. "I guess you can't just glean what you've seen me and Obito do forever." However, shortly after reaching the second floor, they noticed a small child sitting in front of an office door in the hallway, carelessly petting a snow-white rabbit while perched in her chair and kicking her feet. The young girl had expressive brown eyes and long black hair. She was dressed in a blue kimono with a silver dragon design and black sandals on her feet. The young child noticed someone was getting close, so she released her hand from the rabbit she was petting and waved to the strangers Kakashi and Naruto. However, that was no excuse for lack of courtesy. The girl said, "Hello, Kakashi-san. Good morning." With a grin, "Your teammates sent a message saying that they should be back in the country and back at base within a day or so." With a smile, Kakashi said, "Thank you, Haku. Your father should know better than to leave you all alone anywhere," she said. "But what are you doing out here all by yourself?" She was such a sweet girl that it was difficult to believe who was raising and training her. "Zabuza Atu-san just went to dig through the missions to find something easy for me to do today. He could have at least unlocked the door to the office," Haku said, shrugging her shoulders and briefly returning her gaze to the rabbit. She finished with a frown before turning to face the young blonde boy who was curiously staring at her. "Era, who is this?" she asked. "This is Naruto. He's probably going to be here a lot since he's going to be a mercenary one day just like you. Isn't that right, Naruto?" Kakashi asked him, and when he heard it, Naruto nodded so quickly that his head might have fallen off of his neck. Kakashi then pushed Naruto forward a little. Glad to finally have someone her own age to talk to instead of just all of the elderly people who would treat her like a little child, Haku said, "Nice to meet you, Naruto-kun. I'm Haku Momochi. My father should be around somewhere, but that's okay, you'll see him soon," she exclaimed, realizing that for once she was older than someone and that Naruto was shorter than her. Naruto seemed to enjoy the air that Haku gave him. She was a very sweet young lady. He didn't even need to say anything to get her to talk to him, so she was most definitely friendly. "Nice to meet you too. So are you really a mercenary like you said? You can take missions and everything?" Haku nodded, which made Naruto even more excited. "That's so cool." Naruto turned to Kakashi and tugged on his pant leg. "I want to be a mercenary like Haku-ni-chan. She's awesome." Haku was undoubtedly nicer than those jerks at school. Sheepishly, Kakashi rubbed the back of his head, though it was unrealistic to expect that Haku's remark about her mission would have gone unnoticed by Naruto. He still tried, saying, "Haku's a special case. She's been the apprentice to her adoptive father since she's known him, so she's skilled enough to be a mercenary. You don't have any training at all on the other hand. So train me, number can do, Rin would kill me. Ah, say, can Naruto stay with you for a bit? Kakashi asked the young girl, turning from the pouting blonde boy to Haku. I want to go check the messages to hear what Rin and Obito had to say, but he just met you and seems to like you. I don't really want to take him away, would you mind? Kakashi stated. Do you want to play with my bunny? Zabuza Atu-san let me bring him from home today. Meet Yukiashi, Haku said, holding out the small white mammal to Naruto, who carefully took it before giving it a hug. Once again, a smile lit up Haku's face as she shook her head fervently. It's okay. I don't mind at all. I like Naruto-kun too, he seems like fun. Kakashi, hiding behind his face mask, smiled when he saw Naruto begin to play with Haku and her rabbit. Then, he left the kids to play in the hallway. Haku eventually looked up from her game with Naruto at the sound of heavy bootsteps, joy in her eyes as she got up to rush over to the person she heard approaching. She did this so fast that it startled Naruto a great deal. She was simply sitting there with him one moment, and then she was up and walking away, saying, "Wow, Haku Nichan is really fast." Haku exclaimed, "Zabuza Atu-san," with delight as she grabbed hold of the somewhat bulky man who was dressed in camouflage pants and a sleeveless shirt with bandages covering his mouth and neck. The terrifying sword resting on his back was another striking feature. It took a lot of strength for him to hold that. Look, I made a friend. This is Naruto-kun and he's new. Can he come into the office and play with me and Yukiashi? She exclaimed as one of his arm-warmer-clad hands patted her on the head and she hurried over to pull Naruto up. For a while, Zabuza just watched as the blonde boy blinked in interest and continued to stare down at Naruto. He finally broke eye contact and moved to unlock the door, saying, "Yeah, sure, I don't see why not. The mission I have for you is very easy, and it doesn't start until this afternoon so you have time. Now get on in there." He then moved aside to allow Haku to run past his leg and into his office. Zabuza moved to block Naruto's path with his leg as he moved to follow, saying, "Not you, not yet." With curiosity, Naruto glanced up at the tall, intimidating man. "What's wrong? Am I in trouble?" he asked. He was usually in trouble because he wasn't allowed somewhere when people told him not to go. But Zabuza, didn't he just say he could enter? "That depends." Zabuza replied quietly, "Did you do anything to Haku? Are you going to try and bully her? She's sweet so she'd probably let you do anything you wanted as long as she thinks you're friends." Naruto glared up at Zabuza and exclaimed, "No way." He detested bullies. They would always try to make fun of him for not having parents, having a less than satisfactory lunch than theirs, or for any other reason they could think of. For foolish reasons that infuriated him, and after beating them up, he'd get into trouble. In what way was that just? I'd never do anything like that. Haku Nichan's super nice to me. Was not even in his 6-year-old mind. Good. Zabuza replied calmly before shifting his tone to one of caution, because there are 2 rules in dealing with me. The first rule is do not touch Kabikarabachu here or I'll have you get really acquainted with it when I cut off your limbs. He responded by touching the sword's hilt for the sake of emphasis. Second of all, you've seen my sweet little Haku already so I don't need to describe her to you. She likes you so you can talk to her, but other than that you don't touch her, you don't look at her in a funny way, you don't do anything bad. If I even sense you thinking anything off-kilter in your empty little head and my Haku is somehow involved in the thought process I'm going to make you disappear. After all, who's going to remember seeing a little runt like you if you up and vanish one day? He said, grimly. Holding onto the bunny, which was clearly trying to wriggle out of Naruto's arms, Naruto could feel Zabuza's attempt to channel killing intent, but he just kept staring up at him. But the boy himself seemed as if he had not even heard Zabuza's previous words, asking, "What?" That dramatically intimidating warning speech, though, completely missed the child's ears. Would it have been better to wait to try it on an older person? Just go kid, Zabuza said in a defeated tone of voice as he sighed and moved his leg to let Naruto enter the office. Naruto didn't need to be told twice to go to Haku, who was waiting patiently on a couch close to Zabuza's desk. "You sure took a long time getting in here, Naruto-kun." Gasped. "Hey, what's the matter with Yukiashi? He looks scared of something." "I don't know. He seemed fine outside and then your dad stopped me at the door and said some stuff. I don't know what he was talking about. He's weird. A stupid rabbit can sense that killing intent when it wasn't even directed at it, but a brat can't," Zabuza said, closing the door to his office and glancing at the 2 children attempting to calm the rabbit down. "What the heck, am I going blind or did someone drop him?"
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.